Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto get harem in sekirei world after sleeping for 2000 years? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the SyncroX for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. It was a relatively normal day, at least for most people in the world. In an area that would soon come to be known as Japan 1,000 years later, a spaceship crashed right into the ocean next to it, eliciting multiple shockwaves as it thundered through the waves down into the sea. If civilians that resided in that area, they merely shrugged it off as another one of those quakes that would come and go every so often. Had someone been staring out at the waves of blue that rushed the beaches, they would have seen a peculiar scene. Standing on the water around the scene of the crash were 7 blonde individuals, all bearing similar birthmarks on their cheeks, 6 strange whisker-like features to go along with their cerulean eyes. Right, what do you guys reckon? The leader of them spoke up in a pompous tone. Who cares, I want food. Let's get back to fishing. The slightly plump blonde replied. I can't believe I came out here with you guys, those lovely ladies that are waiting for me. He added in a swoon just for extra effect. Hey, let's dive in and find out. Might even be treasure in them. Drool trickled down his chin at the mention of possible treasure. Arg. Will you guys shut up? I swear I'm gonna kill you all one day. A very angry individual. Aw, I want a thingy like that too. Apparently, he was jealous of a hunk of metal. TSK, so troublesome this one was the laziest of them all. Well, since this place is special to boss, let's just dive in and do a quick search before reporting back to him. The leader decided, easily ignoring all the other protests that arose. It would be a while before they stopped bickering and got to work, and it would be even later when they found that instead of treasure, this particular spaceship held 108 life forms within them. As the 7 blondes rushed off after making sure that the spaceship was safe and sound with no possibility of anyone discovering them for the time being, all they could think of as one was what boss would say once they told him that aliens have invaded them. XX. It was now the year 2000, and the spaceship that had crashed over 1,000 years ago was now known as Kamakura Island. Unbeknownst to the rest of the world, a military war was occurring right on this piece of Earth. MBI, Mid-Bioinformatics, what started to be a pharmaceutical company, has slowly begun to climb the ranks of society and had established itself as one of the most powerful conglomerates in modern society. Granted, compared to other major corporations that resided in other parts of the world, such as the famous Trinity Inc., it was still lacking in terms of wealth and social status, but it was definitely building itself into an empire, and naturally, certain countries simply could not allow that to happen. Especially when such an organization belonged to a single person only. It was well known that the only reason MBI was so successful was because of the technology it brought to the plate, or rather, the super technology. It was uncanny how medical breakthroughs were made with a snap of fingers, and inventions that shouldn't belong to this age were being produced by the minute. After much research, it was found that Kamakura Island, where MBI headquarters was based on for the moment, had a spaceship on it, one that recently rose to surface in the year 1999. Minaka Hiroto, a mere university researcher at that point, had somehow stumbled upon that spaceship, and rumors had it that there were aliens on board it, holding information to technology far surpassing that of the current age. A surprising thing to note was that when the so-called technology of the aliens did come out, they somewhat resembled what one of the major powerhouses of the economy, Trinity Inc., already released. The only difference was that Trinity Inc. had been around for as long as anyone could remember, and MBI just grew overnight. No one thought that there could be some linkage between the two because, frankly, that would be too much of a coincidence. Trinity Inc. not only covered the medical and pharmaceutical side of things, but everything else that went on in the world as well. If you could think of any service, anything for sale, any person to hire, Trinity Inc. would be your first and foremost choice. Nowadays, it was an absolute honor to be hired by Trinity Inc., and since its headquarters were located in the United States, it was natural that its profits would be very well protected. This was part of the reason why the rising of MBI angered some of the countries surrounding it, because they felt that MBI was attempting to usurp the power that Trinity Inc. currently had, and they would do everything they could to help protect their profits by showing Trinity Inc. a sign of goodwill. That sign was the destruction of MBI. No one knew who the CEO of Trinity Inc. was, ever since the corporate first assembled hundreds of years ago, The highest-ranking official of the company to ever face the public had been the executive vice president. While it was repeatedly proclaimed that Trinity Inc. was a family business and wanted a bit of privacy because of that, no one actually believed it for the simple fact that there was never news of the CEO getting married. Surely someone would have noticed a new female wandering around the headquarters if that was the case? Another surprising fact was that the employees didn't seem to be as curious. People thought they were threatened or brainwashed or something. They came up with multiple explanations as to why they didn't want to know who their boss was, but to no avail. All they could get out of them was that Trinity Inc. was the best place to work at in the world, and they wouldn't give that opportunity to anyone else. The board of trustees was governed by 7 individuals, and again, the matter of secrecy kicked in, so no one actually knew who they were. It was really impressive that the corporation was able to keep it a secret for so many years in the first place, but after a while, people didn't care anymore, for the simple fact that Trinity Inc.'s services were top-notch, efficient, and affordable. Before anyone knew it, Trinity Inc. had branches all over the world, greatly increasing the profit brought to the developing countries in particular, and was widely accepted by the crowd. All other companies that had wanted to sabotage Trinity Inc. had been cut down without mercy, and right now, for countries that have yet to get on Trinity Inc.'s good side, they have decided to take action. An alliance was formed where they would destroy MBI and show Trinity Inc. how serious they were in protecting its interests, hoping that would be enough to have a branch set up in their country. Ready! Fire! At the command of the general, military arms rained down on the spaceship without mercy. Their orders were absolute: leave none alive. At first it seemed like everything was working really well, and that the alliance had the upper hand. Soldiers had confident smiles on their faces as they charged right into the enemy base, ready to conquer any that stood in their way. What awaited them, however, would be quite a cruel fate. Not that the higher-ups would care. Pawns were meant to be sacrificed after all. XX. In but a few hours, the troops were decimated. What amounted to thousands was now reduced to hundreds, and even that was diminishing at an alarming rate. Veteran generals, renowned through the world for their military expertise, were at a loss for words, fear gripping their throats, denying them any ability to speak. This was a massacre. Blood and gore at its finest. Who would have thought blades would be enough to slice through the storm of bullets that were sent their way? How many enemies were there? 5. How many casualties have they had so far? 5,000. That ratio was quite unpleasant, further proven by the growing shade of green that now resided on the commander's face. It didn't take long for his satellite phone to ring. And Mr. President, I can explain. I do not want to hear a word from you. This was supposed to be a simple matter. What are you morons doing out there? Eliminate the threat and return. Please wait. There's no way we can defeat them. They're far stronger, faster, and tougher than normal humans. Commander, need I remind you, there's only 5 of them? Get your act together and destroy them now. Failure will not be accepted. I'm sure you know of the consequences? Yes, sir. Good, now do what I sent you to do. Understood, sir. Beep beep beep. Taking in a deep breath, the commander tried to steady his voice as he roared to his subordinates, "Get me reinforcements. We'll ready one final assault and run them to the ground with numbers. We must defeat them at all costs. Bring out every single piece of artillery we have." "Sir, yes, sir." Despite the energetic reply from them, the commander couldn't help but feel sweat trickle down his neck. He had just taken another look at the screen showing the center of the battles taking place. Their eyes were devoid of emotion as they cut down enemy after enemy, taking life after life without the slightest of hesitation. Only 4 of them were doing the killing. The redhead was manning a special laptop that was disrupting every single electronic device within a 5-kilometer radius. If not for the efforts of the entire national military IT squad, even the command center would be rendered useless by now. Even now, it took the brains of 113 individuals to barely match what the redhead was accomplishing. The other 4 were all dressed in a special black uniform design, never before seen by any army in the world. The white cape billowed behind them from the gusts of winds generated from their devastating attacks. Never before would the commander have believed that one punch to the ground was enough to create a crater the size of a tennis court. He was now introduced to the harsh reality before him, where his soldiers were slaughtered like ants. As much as he would like to order a retreat, he knew there was no such option. He could only go forth, telling himself to ignore the fact that those black garbs felt like the calling of the death gods. XX. Well, that's the last of them. Matsu gave a happy sigh as she closed the cover of her laptop. It had taken her quite a bit of effort to finally shut down those annoying pests. Didn't they know that she was the smartest living thing on this planet? In any case, they certainly did now. Those crappy machines they dare call computers won't be of any use for the next 24 hours. Waving towards the other 4 members of the disciplinary squad, the redhead grinned widely. Oh, I. Minna! Everyone! Stop your hollering, Matsu! Number 5 Matsu grumbled as he sliced and diced through yet another wave of reinforcements. Seriously, what would it take for these people to get the idea that they couldn't win? Haha. Well, you can't blame her. She's clearly satisfied with the result of that little IQ battle she just had. Number 3 Kazahana chuckled lightly as she sent blasts of wind through an entire squad of soldiers, although I think the same can be said for Karasuba. As expected, the most bloodthirsty of them all, Number 4 Karasuba had a lopsided smirk on her face, her eyes slightly crazed as she continued to cut down anyone and anything before her. She didn't even bother replying to Kazahana's comment, seeing how watching these worms squirm as their body parts flew all over the place was extremely entertaining. "Mo Miyatan. She's going overboard again," Matsu grumbled as she adjusted her glasses. Why was she the only one that needed glasses anyway? Stupid, insane researchers that like to toy with their bodies for experiments. An elegant figure with violet hair slanted her a glance, before sending a shockwave through her blade to negate the missiles sent their way. I do not see what the problem is. As long as these humans are defeated, our objective will be accomplished. A little pain should help them learn the lesson. She was completely unruffled by the chaos around her. Her alluring figure coupled with that porcelain skin only served to make her an eerie sight on a battlefield of blood and death. Who would have guessed that this slim body would hold such power? MMO, a soldier that had just fell to the ground before her due to the explosion of the missiles, mumbled as he struggled to inch as far away as he could from the 5 individuals. In a flash, Karasuba was onto him, stabbing her Nodaichi into his thigh without mercy, effectively pinning him to the ground as he screamed out in pain. "What was that? I can't hear you? Why you monsters?" His lip was quivering as he spoke, his voice strangled by the fear that clutched at his heart. This thing before him was staring at him with those demented gray eyes, as though wanting to suck his entire soul out so that she could torture him completely. Never mind the fact that she wore an outfit that emphasized her already appealing figure, what with the tight leather top, the miniskirt and stockings that only served to accentuate her enticing bosom and those long, shapely legs. Watching her lick the blood of her Nodaichi after she forcefully removed the blade from his body was more than enough for him to temporarily forget the flash of pain that flared from his wound. His soul refused to react to anything else but this monster that stood before him, rooted to the ground with dread as his mind yelled in anxiety for him to do something, anything to get away from the destiny that awaited him. Alas, it was not to be, as his eyes flew wide open in disbelief that he had become a dead man just like that. There really wasn't much to think when one's head had left his shoulders. A small chuckle was heard, before full-blown laughter erupted from the crazed swordswoman. "That's right. That's the look of despair I'm looking for. More, show me more." "Miyatan, she's cackling now. Shouldn't you do something about it?" came the nonplussed voice of Matsu. "I don't think she cares, to be really honest with you." Matsu deadpanned as he moved towards the group. "She is kinda mad that these people tried to kill the other embryos." Ma, no need to worry. Mia knows when she needs to take action. Besides, even I'm a little annoyed that these barbarians would try this on us." Needless to say, the bloodshed continued for quite some time, before finally, the forces that were sent to Kamakura Island were decimated. The commander could hardly believe his eyes at the helplessness of the situation. Massacre didn't even begin to describe what had happened to them. While it was true that these troops of his have yet to be in a real war situation, and this was perhaps the first time that they actually had to act to kill, so some warm-up jitters were to be allowed. Never would he have imagined that these jitters would continue the rest of the way. Some of his men didn't even know what hit them before they were blown to bits. Chunks of meat splattered over their comrades, eliciting shrieks and gasps that should normally be reserved for kindergartens. Alas, he couldn't blame them. He would have wet his pants too had he been at the front line with them. Even with his experience, he didn't see himself holding out much longer than the elite of his army. One just could not overcome such a difference in power. Now here he was, gritting his teeth in resignation, holding his head high, knowing that he would soon be saying goodbye to this lovely world. Though who was he kidding? This world sucked, and if he ever had a choice, he would have pulled a retreat order, and said screw you to his superior. Nonetheless, there really wasn't time for regret, as he did indeed say goodbye. Quite brutally too, what with the limbs flying first, then the head, and last of all, a man's most precious organ. Considering how it was Karasuba who did that, the other 4 of the disciplinary squad weren't too surprised. She always had a mean streak in her, though they were somewhat curious as to why she would do that to the commander only. Number 4 simply smirked, before pointing towards one of those remaining helicopters desperately trying to escape. They've got cameras on those things. Surely their superiors would have gotten the message. Matsu squinted her eyes as she adjusted her glasses, gaining a mysterious look as she stared right back at Karasuba. You're just disgusted that the guy wet his pants, aren't you? An awkward silence settled in as Kazahana struggled to hold in her laughter, what with her cheeks pouting and all in an effort to not make the situation any more embarrassing. Though her efforts were in vain, as she ended up guffawing, jiggling her impressive bust as she smacked her hand repeatedly on the shoulder of an exasperated Matsu. Karasuba had a tick above her eyes as she glared at an innocently whistling Matsu, putting an emphasis on each word as she stomped towards the redhead. What was that? Nothing. I didn't say anything. You guys didn't hear anything, right? Needless to say, number 2 was very confident in the fact that there was no way she could match Karasuba in combat, and easily chose to evade the question. Why you? Miyatan, save me. I can't believe you would just chop a man's junk off just because of that. Ha 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 ha. As usual, Kazahana was beside herself in laughter, continuing to slap Matsu around because the male was technically the youngest of them all. Not that he liked it, if the grinding of his teeth was any indication. Just before the chaos could continue to grow, the purplet, who had strangely remained silent all this time, spoke up in her soft voice. Who are you? Huh? What are you on about, Miyatan? Saving me should be more woe. Matsu, who was in the midst of pleading mercy to a raging Karasuba, turned her head to find a strange blonde human sitting right in the middle of their group, gazing peacefully at them, even placing a fist under his chin as he chuckled lightly, as though enjoying their little banter. In an instant, all 4 of them stood alert, stances ready to battle at any moment. Karasuba and Kazahana were shocked in particular. Just how had this human appeared out of nowhere without any of them realizing? It was normal for Matsu not to notice because, well, he was Matsu. Said individual grumbled in protest at the faith that was shown in his abilities just because he was number 5, or the non-faith really, but was promptly ignored. The blonde human continued to sit there cross-legged, his sky-blue eyes focusing only on Mia even as she stared at him with eyes that would have frozen hell over. A small smirk found its way to his as he shrugged, just wanted to check what all the fuss was all about, this new MBI place. Standing up slowly, he stretched his limbs for a bit, acting completely nonchalant at the fact that he was being surrounded by 5 aliens, 4 hot ones at that, ready to kill him if he were to pull anything off at all. Once that was done, he eased up to each of the females, scrutinizing them as he scrunched his eyebrows together, as though admiring a piece of fine art. Naturally, he ignored Matsu, which once again brought about quiet mumblings of non-faith and must stab to death. During his examination, the 4 females did not move at all, or rather, found themselves unwilling to move. Karasuba tried with all her might to stay alert, forcing herself to ignore the fluttering of her heart and the progressive increase in her body temperature, as the blonde's gaze roamed all over her body. Kazahana could literally feel him undressing her with his eyes, and never before has she been so aroused. Granted, she really wasn't all that aroused by the rest. Hello there. I was wondering if there are any rooms available for rent at the moment. Yes, we do in fact have a few rooms vacant at the moment, but may I ask? The purplet tilted her head slightly as she gazed at the man that stood before her, curious as to why a young one like him would end up in this sector of the city. Usually they hung out in the east or the south, where business was blooming and job opportunities were easy to come by. The north was quite the quiet place in comparison, though the serenity of it did attract visitors every now and then. Naruto gave a sheepish smile as he scratched the back of his head. Ah, right, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. And I somehow lost my Trinity credit card on my way around the city, and since I really wanted to find somewhere I could live within the cash budget I had, I've decided to give yours a try. The fact that he made it as vague as he could how he lost his credit card should have been quite suspicious, but somehow, Mia could tell that he was just really embarrassed. It was quite pathetic, really. You would expect someone who trained for the past 20 years to be much more dexterous when it came to handling objects the size of his palm. But apparently when ramen was added to the mix, things would get complicated. He was hungry, and was wandering in the southern district when he stumbled upon this awesome ramen stall, which was really just a normal stall that served ramen, but because it served ramen, it automatically became awesome. He had like 20 bowls or something, effectively scaring the heck out of the owner, and when it came time to pay, he was so immersed in happiness at having been able to eat ramen after so many years of eating Ma's disgusty, or a tasty stew, he wanted to thank the store owner as quickly as he could. So with the quickness one would expect from a trained shinobi, he withdrew his wallet in one fluid motion, brandished his Trinity credit card, only for it to slip from his fingers and fall right into the pot of ramen that was on the stove. He had to pay using the cash he had left on him, and by the time he left the store, his wallet was considerably lighter. Gama-chan was not pleased at all as it stared back at him with blank eyes even as Naruto rubbed his cheek against it repeatedly saying how he didn't mean to lose control like that when it came to ramen, he just couldn't help it. Gama-chan resolutely stayed silent. With what's left on him, he set about trying to find a proper place to stay, but naturally, he couldn't afford any place decent in the bustling districts of East and South, and that was how he finally ended up in the North. Not that the landlady needed to know any of his embarrassing exploits, of course. Which would lead to his current abashed expression as he tried to not look as ashamed of himself as he should. The landlady simply giggled at this and gave a nod of affirmation. In that case, you are more than welcome to rent a room here for a value of 50,000 yen a month. All methods of payment are fine, with exception to using the MBI card. Her smile never reached her eyes as she spoke the last bit, earning a raised eyebrow from Naruto. So you don't take credit cards? I do, just not the MBI card. Huh. Why is that? Himitsu-disa. It's a secret. How she managed to say that with a straight face was beyond him. What the hell happened in the last 20 years for her to undergo such a brilliant character change? Kinda reminded him of himself when he was young. It was fun to act way younger than your age so that females would think you're cute, and then you move in for the... Wait a minute. Wait, what? Since when did he owe right lust? Of course. Shaking his head at his random thought process, he focused back onto the landlady that stood at ease before him. Deciding to let his curiosity get the better of him, or rather he let his inner Jiraiya-trained pervert take over and blurted out, "Are you currently married?" The end result to that question was quite hilarious. He was treated to the number one sekirei staring at him with owlish eyes, her stance completely thrown off balance, as she was taken aback by how forward he was. They've only met for the first time, least in her memory, a few minutes ago. Naruto was quite certain he heard someone spitting their drink out on the second floor at his question. Disturbing chuckles seemed to echo for a few seconds as well, not that he knew where they were coming from since he was currently as normal as a human could be. Why I never! You certainly don't beat around the bush, do you, Naruto-san? Placing her right hand lightly over her chest, the landlady did a perfect swoon as she continued on. Should I even consider letting you into this and now that I know of your lust for me? Raising an eyebrow, Naruto got into his thinking pose, which was really just placing a hand under his chin and lifting his head up slightly. But of course, if anything you should be using your wily wits to pretend to show me affection so that I would sell my soul to you and be your loyal slave for the rest of our lives. Yep, definitely lust. It was quite disturbing actually now that he knew of some of the things the clone would do. Flirting was fine, this was not. Whatever response the perplet thought she would be getting, it certainly wasn't this. It wasn't often that someone was able to ruin her pace so easily twice in a row. Naruto-san, are you a masochist? When he heard that, Naruto made an oath right then and there that if he were to ever hear those words coming out of the mouth of such an angelic face, he would commit seppuku right then and there. Not that I know of, no. You could have fooled me with your last outburst. How those lilac orbs could say such hurtful things so easily was beyond him. It's complicated. Yes, it does seem rather bad. Alright, that's it. Even if you have the body of a porcelain goddess of perfection, I will not hesitate to rip your clothes off and ravage. Seriously, lust, what the hell have you been doing for the past 2,000 years? Rolling his eyes, Naruto simply shook his head, jokes aside. Are you? Surprisingly, the landlady gave him a frank answer, yes, I am. Their roles switched instantly as Naruto became the drama queen or king. I must meet the gentleman that was able to capture the heart of such an enchanting lady. I shall challenge him to a duel and may the winner. He passed away. Well, shit. How was one supposed to respond to something like that? I'm sorry for your loss? What he really wanted to blurt out was, it's definitely his loss. It wasn't that he was being insensitive. I mean, he was only sorting through 2,000 years worth of experience, and in all honesty, he didn't even know the poor bloke. It was really hard to feel sorry for someone who got married to one of the hottest killing machines on Earth, only to die. Rather anticlimactic, one would say. It's okay. I came to terms with it myself a long time ago. He was the one that taught me about how we should never refuse aid to people in need of them. His goal was to make this world a much better place, to rid the people of sorrow and pain, allowing everyone to live in peace. Haha, it sounds so silly, doesn't it? Not really, no. I mean, I've only tried to do that 700 billion times in the past. He sounds like a respectable man to me. That he was, yes? Her serene smile said it all. Sigh, looks like I lost my chance. Oh well. So do you have any kids yet? Not one to linger on his losses for long, the blonde instantly followed up on the topic in a chirpy manner. This would be the third time she looked at him as though he was the alien. It was quite disconcerting, really. Once again, sounds of someone choking over her drink and more folk could be heard. I don't understand. Those lavender eyes of hers showed genuine confusion, as though his question required an answer from someone that was not of this dimension. You were married, right? From how you were talking about him, you must have known him for a long time. It can't be a purely platonic love, can it? Honest to Kami, he intended for that to be a joke. People were supposed to laugh at jokes, not nod at them and go, why yes. That's exactly what it was. Naruto then face vaulted right onto the concrete path he was standing on, his eyes strangely flooding with tears as he gave a silent thumbs up to himself. Wherever you are now, I want to thank you for being the noble guy you were. I was the one to suggest it, after all. Oh the Lord, the long, suffering nights you must have been having. You poor, poor bastard. Leaping up quick as a flash, Naruto kneeled down on one knee before her, gently grasping her left hand, and was in the motion of raising it to his for as he murmured in a rather feral way, I shall accomplish what he has failed. What that earned him was a broom to the head. Not just any broom, it was the broom. Like the anti-pervert broom. Naturally, that meant a small crater was now formed around Naruto's head, which currently resided on the concrete path. Now, Uzumaki-san, lewd acts like this are forbidden in Isumo Inn. That was done in such a perfectly sophisticated manner, though the blonde mumbled through the rubble in his face. XX. It took him a while to get settled into the room he was allocated. Seeing how he didn't have any belongings with him other than his backpack, not that he needed any really, he had been sleeping in environments way worse than this for the past few years, the landlady, who introduced herself as Asama Mia, had gave him some basic directions as to where he could get some basic furniture to decorate his room a bit. Unbeknownst to the landlady, a blonde clone had phased into existence the moment she mentioned where futons were sold, and was on his mission to buy the everyday necessities that his boss would need. Naruto wasn't too fussed about furniture. His first home had one bed, one table, and that was it. Mia then led him to meet his new neighbor, Ayuzum-san. He caused quite the scene when both females caught him staring at the star symbol that was present on Yuzum's t-shirt. Or rather what was underneath the symbol. Deawayawam. Smack. Uzumaki-san, what did I tell you about lewd acts? Hey, I wasn't acting on anything. Can't a man even look and appreciate something that's available right in front of him? His indignant cries elicited quite the joyous laughter from Yuzum, who gave him a cheeky reply. You can look all you want, but you can't touch. Deal. Uzumaki-san. Another round of whacking ensued. After that, Yuzum had to rush off to the hospital to meet up with someone, and Naruto was left all alone with Mia once again. Rubbing his head to try and ease those red bumps off his head, he turned towards the slightly miffed landlady sheepishly. Yeah, sorry about that. Mo, Uzumaki-san is such a hentai. I'm not even sure if it was the right decision to let you in now. Well, it's not my fault the first two people I meet are of such high standards. The only females I've had contact with for the past few years were toads, for goodness sake. Mia simply gave a haughty sniff. Men and their need to over-exaggerate. But I'm telling the truth, MT Mayaboku only had toads. Shrugging off his disappointment at how he was misunderstood, Naruto decided to change the topic. So, anyone else I need to meet? The purplet gave him one last condescending glare, before closing her eyes and replying calmly, fortunately, Kaguri-san is currently working, so you won't be able to meet him until he gets back. Feeling a sweat drop form on his forehead, Naruto grimaced. You don't have to be this careful of me, you know. I don't swing that way. Opening her eyes by a tiny margin, she peered at him with an intensity that was pretty unnerving, as though trying to decide if that last sentence was even worth commenting on, before finally deciding to stomp on the blonde's ego some more. Nonetheless, I feel the need to protect Kaguri-san's innocence from you. Getting up from the ground after suffering a major face fault, Naruto tried once more to make small talk. So what kind of job does this Kaguri-san do anyway? Noticing how Mia was giving him that suspicious squint once again, the blonde asked in confusion, What? I'm just asking. You're not intending to stalk him, are you? Q-face fault. You're having with me, aren't you? Struggling to get up after falling down so many times, what with the accusations piling all over him, weighing him down, Naruto asked in a quivering voice, You're cruel. Has anyone ever told you that? Rude on top of being a hentai. What monster did I unleash upon Isumo Inn? That did the job. Naruto was now permanently stuck to the ground, with no intention of getting up again, not when this devil of a woman was lashing at him with that devious little tongue. And to answer your last question, Kaguri-san works as a host at a nightclub. Silence reigned for about 3 seconds before a supposedly flimsy Naruto leapt off the ground with overwhelming force, before glaring right at the landlady, who tried to look as innocent as she could. How can he still be innocent if he works as a host? Is Uzumaki-san one to judge people by their jobs? That's not the point. I'm so scared. Uzumaki-san is yelling at me. Hiding her eyes behind her hands, she tried to play the damsel in distress, but naturally, Naruto wasn't just going to let her win. Oh, Mia-san. Yes? Uzumaki-san? Apparently she deemed it worthy to play along. This woman was just insufferable. She even had the gall to smile so sweetly at him, as though he was the one at fault, successfully making him feel so very small. Sighing, Naruto ruffled his hair a bit, trying to gather his thoughts. I need some fresh air. Don't think I've forgotten about this whole thing now, I'll get you yet. Adding a bit of playful snarl into his words, he tried to act the image of a vengeful Yakuza. Alright, goodbye for now, Uzumaki-san. I'll be sure to tell Kaguri-san how much you cared about him, and that you love him. When have I ever said that? His calm and collected stance was ruined in an instant. Has Uzumaki-san perhaps lost his memory? Taihen, oh, this is serious, I should give you the directions to the hospital and… Before she even finished, Naruto was seen running out of Izumo Inn with twin torrents of tears flying behind his figure as he disappeared into the distance. It would be a while before Mia started chuckling merrily as she resumed clearing up the leaves in her backyard, quietly mumbling to herself, That will teach him for trying to ask me stupid questions. XX. There was a motto in Naruto's life that he had come to abide. Nothing to do with how strong one could become when protecting someone precious to him. Nothing to do with how he was going to become Hokage. Nothing to do with how Sakura-chan was the love of his life. When in doubt, have a bowl of ramen. Itadakimasu. And with that, all sorrows were thrown away. It really was that simple. After he had escaped from Izumo Inn, he had been wandering through the streets for a while, wondering just what he should be doing now, before he realized that he actually needed cash on him before he could do anything. Hence, his first priority was to find a branch of Trinity Bank located somewhere in Shinto Taido. It took him just a little over an hour of asking and walking to finally find it, go in, give the password and all that, and retrieve his money. It was his bank after all, the procedures were extremely simple for him. It was then where a little mishap happened to him. He had literally just walked out of the bank when he heard a loud shriek of "Get out of the way, please," before he was pummeled to the ground by someone. He knew it was a someone because some things do not speak. Struggling to get up, he found himself nicely stuck in the tangle with the aforementioned someone, and after spending more than 5 minutes removing himself from the person, he took a good look at his assailant. Itai. Oh. Musubi is so sorry. Are you alright, mister? Naruto easily waved off her concerns with a simple answer of I'm alright before he stared at the fair-skinned young woman that stood before him. She was of average height and a slender build, sporting a very developed and curvaceous body with a slim waist and flared hips. Her hair was a light shade of brown, done up in a traditional Japanese harem style, with short bangs and chin-length strands framing her face coupling with hip-length hair tied back in a pink ribbon at the nape of her neck. Watching her in amusement as she fidgeted about anxiously, he noticed that her attire felt strangely similar to that of a Japanese Miko priestess, though hers felt more like a combat version of the attire. She wore a white gi together with a red thigh-length skirt, thigh-high stockings and ankle-high brown boots, all of which only served to put more emphasis on that enticing figure of hers. Naturally, the most noticeable part of her appearance was her firm and well-endowed chest, which really did no justice to what they would really look like once those clothes come off. Wait, what? Shaking his head in an almost violent manner, Naruto proceeded to chant in his brain that he would not allow that one sin of his to take over once he sees hot girls with large S. Of course, it was always easier said than done, because the second time he looked back at the poor girl who was on the verge of hyperventilating for fear that she had hurt him, his eyes were once again focused on her perky. Arg. Bad Naruto. Bad Naruto. Mister. Are you sure you're alright? Why are you smashing your head into the wall? Her voice was melodious and easy on the ears. Those words that came out of her mouth, however, were a bit too youthful for his liking. Of course I'm alright. Naruto muttered in a dull tone even as blood trickled down his face as the seconds passed by. Why would I not be alright? The poor girl simply did not know what to say and continued bustling around him, trying to do something to help save this kind man who softened her fall. In the end, it took Naruto 5 more minutes to reassure the girl that he was fine and that she did not cause him brain damage despite her vehement comments that she must have because no one in their right mind would bash their head on walls for no reason whatsoever. So, Musubi-chan, what sent you flying through the air? The blonde asked in a carefree manner, somewhat curious as to why someone of her age and naivety would be allowed to wander the streets by herself. Oh. Musubi was being chased by 2 very evil bullies. They kept firing lightning strikes at me. Musubi had no choice but to escape. The emotions that threatened to explode from her slim figure could be felt in waves by Naruto, and the blonde couldn't help but sweat drop at how enthusiastic she seemed to be. Right, lightning strikes. How about this, Musubi-chan? I'll give you something to protect you from them. How does that sound? Really? That's great. Thank you very much, mister. Her eyes widened upon hearing his suggestion, and tears began to build up in her eyes as she sniffed pitifully. Mister is such a nice person. Resisting the urge to glomp her and exclaim the typical kawaii shout, Naruto simply handed her a small paper tag. Mister sounds so formal. My name is Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto-san. Thank you so very much. Giving him a steep bow, the nimble brunette was suddenly on the alert, before she leapt off in a different direction, giving him very energetic waves of her hand all the while. Sorry, Naruto-san. I think they're nearby again. I don't want to get you electrocuted, so I'll be off. Hopefully I'll be able to see you again sometime. Stifling a choke of laughter, he waved back, before settling into his thinking stance once more. 97-58-91 Fu. He then erupted into a series of perverted giggles that had all the other pedestrians inching away just a bit more than necessary as they walked past him. It took him another few minutes in Ika land before he finally remembered something important. Ah crap. I didn't tell her how to use that tag. Staring blankly ahead as he tried to think of some way where he would be able to get that information to Musubi, he finally gave up and shrugged in resignation. Well, I'm sure she'll come up with something. She's a smart girl after all. With that mini-episode aside, he then made his way back to the ramen restaurant, where he would follow his motto and eat ramen to digest all his sorrow. It wasn't as good as the ones he made, but it would have to make do. He was simply too lazy to start cooking himself after being pampered by Ma to eat those stews of hers for the past 20 years or so. So after paying the flabbergasted chef, Naruto happily made his way out of the restaurant, and gave a loud, satisfied burp. Now what should I? Naruto-san. Please get out of the way. Raising an eyebrow at hearing the familiar voice, the blonde turned his head and was about to wave at her, and said that he was just thinking of looking for her, when two fleshy mounds rammed themselves into his face, sending them both into a tussle on the ground once again. He really didn't want to get up quickly, seeing how his head was nested directly between Musubi's firm, luscious S. Must this girl tempt him so? He would seriously consider stripping her in public just to prove that he had her 3 sizes down to the pat if she kept rubbing herself against him like this. And Naruto-san. Hey, are you okay? Asked a very dizzy Musubi as she struggled to find her bearings. Said blonde could only sigh in exasperation as he picked her up with one hand, patted the dust off her attire, and gave her a soft flick on the forehead. So? What's your excuse this time? I know I'm a nice guy and all, but you can't just aim to hit on me so often, you know? My ego might skyrocket and burst. The sarcasm that was oozing from him was obviously lost on the naive girl as she blinked curiously at his comments. Egos can do that? Musubi had no idea. Speechless once again, Naruto decided to be straight up with her, just in case she got caught up in other matters. How come you're still escaping? Did you use that tag I gave you? Upon hearing that, the brunette started nodding furiously. Yes. That was really helpful. Thank you so much, Naruto-san. Raising an eyebrow, the blonde couldn't help but ask, then why are you still running? That tag surely would have slowed them down enough for you to escape successfully. The tag he gave her was a Doton, Ishishibari, Earth Element, Rock Bind tag. Following the elemental cycle of destruction, lightning was weak against Earth, and hence that tag should have been able to repel whatever lightning strikes that was sent at the girl and then latched onto the users, effectively disarming them. At this, the poor girl started stuttering and mumbling as she pointed her forefingers together in front of her chest. Straining to hear her, Naruto leaned in. What was that? Musubi was so amazed at what the tag did that she forgot to run away. Teehee. Adopting an absolutely adorable expression with a light blush on her face, she tried to pass it off as a common mistake that anyone would make had they seen what the tag could do. Honestly, that tag was so cool. Naruto, though, couldn't help but do a perfect facepalm. Ignoring the twitching of his eyebrows, the blonde could only imagine the brunette's surprise when all of a sudden, rocky ropes were extended from the tag, first forming a protective barrier for her, absorbing the energy, and then charging for the owners of that energy, tying them up into a bundle, rendering them harmless. Looking at how she was poking out her tongue in an abashed manner, the girl probably drooled while she stared at the bundle, poked at it a few times, and unknowingly with her huge strength, weakened the bonds, and freed her bullies. He would later find out that it was exactly what had happened, which would bring much laughter to the entire Isumo Inn, but that was another story for another time. The blonde was currently at a dilemma as to what he could do for her. He still had yet to see the lightning people who were chasing Musubi, and he couldn't possibly take her with him for the simple fact that it would seem extremely suspicious if he were to offer a girl full protection after meeting with her only twice. Most would think he was going after her body or something. So that option was out. At that moment, a loud growling was heard as it echoed through the area. For a few seconds, Naruto stared at his own stomach in suspicion, recognizing that it was definitely that of an empty stomach, but seeing how he had just finished his insanely large ramen meal, that would leave. If possible, Musubi's blush got even deeper in color as she laughed in an awkward manner. It's nothing. It's nothing, Naruto-san. Uh-huh. And how long has it been since you've eaten anything, Musubi-chan? Tapping his feet on the ground, he crossed his arms across his chest, awaiting a response from the girl. And not too long her sentence was cut off by an even louder growl than before. Musubi-chan, it's not good to lie, you know. Hi. Musubi is sorry. Good, now tell me, are you hungry? Naruto-san, with tears flowing down her face, the brunette started wailing, Musubi is starving. XX. 23 bowls of ramen later, Naruto brought an equally satisfied Musubi out of the restaurant, leaving behind them an entire wake of dumbfounded customers who had just witnessed the impossible. The blonde too was surprised to see the girl eat all that food, though it would explain why she was so well endowed at such a young age. The two of them hadn't really spoken that much over the meal since they were both busy eating. Well, mainly Musubi. Naruto was just watching for the most part. Even he couldn't stomach 60 bowls of ramen in one sitting. Technically I could, but that would just leave me feeling very bad afterwards. The two of them then proceeded to have a short walk around the city so as to help digest the food they've eaten so far, and Naruto occasionally made small talk with the brunette, who was more than happy to answer her questions. Musubi is trying very hard to find her Ashikabi. But those bullies are so mean. They'd been trying to sabotage Musubi's mission in life. Mumyama. Why would they do something like that? Naruto-san. Yes, of course. Don't you worry, Musubi-chan, you will definitely find your Ashikabi. Be it tomorrow or 10 years later, you will definitely find him. 10 years later and Musubi doesn't think she can't survive on her own for that long. Don't you have like an MBI card or something? He had only just found out that the girl was literally penniless. Musubi lost it while being chased by those bullies. Sniff, sniff. Ah, I see. But no! Musubi will not give up. If it really would take me 10 years, Musubi will do everything it takes to wait for that day to come. Does it really matter to you that much to find someone that loves you to find your Ashikabi? Why not just find someone you love and be done with it? Hi. Tilting her head to the side, the brunette tried to work out the mechanics in her head. Is there a difference? It's real simple. The guy that you love doesn't have to love you back. The guy that loves you, you usually will love him back. This really only works because you're a sekirei. If you were human, that law will at best work about 5% of the time. Really? Wow, Naruto-san is so smart. The world's best shinobi, Uzumaki Naruto, at your service. Naruto-san, what's a shinobi? My dear Musubi-chan, that's a secret. Ah, that's so sly. Musubi wants to know more about Naruto-san. The way she puffed her cheeks out was just too cute. Naruto almost gave in to the temptation to rub those chubby cheeks of hers. Wahaha. Sorry Musubi-chan, maybe next time. After all, a shinobi is only cool because he has lots of secrets. Turning to face her, he gave her a very corny thumbs up and showed her his shining teeth that went off with a bling. Wow! Naruto-san! Naruto-san! How did you make your teeth shine like that? That was simple, Musubi-chan. I was simply channeling my inner youthfulness. Really? Can Musubi do that as well? But of course you can. Together, we shall be as youthful as can be. Hi! Naruto-san. Musubi-chan. Hi! Naruto-san. One more time, Musubi-chan. Hi! Naruto-san. The blonde's extremely youthful demeanor dampened somewhat as he paused his footsteps for a few seconds, before lightly patting the confused brunette on the shoulder. Musubi-chan, I know it's a bit too much to ask for, but can we please pretend that never happened? Eh? How come? That was so cool. The poor, naive girl had stars in her eyes now. I want to learn more youth. Clamping his hand down more tightly on Musubi's shoulder, he spoke to her in a grim voice. Trust me. You do not want to. But... Please, Musubi-chan, if word gets out I actually did that routine, I'd rather drown myself right now. Wah! Naruto-san. You don't have to cry. Musubi won't tell anyone. Nah. Definitely won't tell anyone. Thank you so much, you're my hero, Musubi-chan. The pair then resumed their walk along the road, ignoring all the pedestrians that froze on their respective spots, some clawing at their eyes for witnessing that little routine the two just went through. It was several minutes later, before Musubi gave off a cute giggle. HM? What's wrong, Musubi-chan? Thought of something funny? Naruto-san, the brunette was positively beaming at him with all that joy on her face. Yes? You're so weird. With that, she broke into blissful laughter as she skipped along the road, wanting to be a few steps ahead of Naruto so she could admire the speechless expression on his face. The sounds of the crow cawing reverberated through the cool night. Ahoo ahoo. XX. The pair finally split up at the park, with Naruto deciding to give Musubi one more try. It just wouldn't do for him to help her too much on her way to discover who her Ashikabi was. After all, the old saying third time's the charm was there for a reason, and Naruto figured that Musubi would gain much more experience by exploring on her own. As much as he knew of the sekirei plan, he didn't want to participate in it unless he absolutely had to. Although given how cute Musubi was, he really wouldn't mind being her Ashikabi. Just imagine all those cuddling sessions you can have. Looking at Musubi always reminded him of a teddy bear for some weird reason. It was quite lucky of him that she still hasn't shown any signs of reacting yet, because Naruto was currently devoid of any essence of power, merely controlling his chakra output to that of a normal human being. One that would not cause excessive and unwanted attraction to sekirei. Naruto was able to tell whenever a sekirei was around. They were like powerhouses exuding energy wherever they went, and for someone who was skilled in senjutsu like him, it really wasn't that hard to pick up on them. Just before Musubi left, however, Naruto had pulled her into a hug and whispered jokingly that if she ever needed help, she could always find him at a place called Isumo Inn. Musubi had returned the hug quite happily and nodded in affirmative. "It's such a pity, Naruto-san." "HM? Why's that?" "Musubi would really have liked for you to be my Ashikabi. But unfortunately, Musubi has yet to feel anything from Naruto-san." She looked quite down at this. "Naruto-san is the nicest person Musubi has met so far. Naruto-san will surely become a very powerful Ashikabi." "Ha ha ha, if you say so, Musubi." Giving her a first view of his foxy grin, the blonde wished her the best of luck and bid her goodbye, for now anyway. He would always think back to this time, how unwilling Musubi was to actually leave him. They would joke about it in the future that fate really was meant to be sometimes. Sighing as he watched the retreating back of the brunette, Naruto found himself a nice spot on a bench and proceeded to sit and contemplate his next move. He didn't really feel like going back to Isumo Inn yet. There was just this feeling in his gut that he still had something to do, but he just didn't know what. Shinobi, throughout the ages that they existed, would always learn to trust their sixth sense, simply because sometimes it was better to be over-paranoid than under-prepared. Thinking it might be Musubi getting into trouble, he decided to sit down and meditate for a bit, just to bide some time as he tried to detect any other presences that might be near him. He was awfully close to the MBI headquarters at this stage, so it wouldn't be surprising if his gut feeling had something to do with them. Wasting no time at all, his orbs changed pigment, somewhat different to what he used to have as a toad sage because he was now a sage connected to Mother Nature itself, and would retain an appearance that was most natural to himself. The only change that he could make out ever since he started training 20 years ago was an actual ripple forming in his pupil, before everything returned to normal. That was all he needed to activate Sage Mode. Talk about efficiency. Guess there definitely were some perks to losing some of his chakra capacity. Granted, he still had enough chakra to beat 2 Kages outright, but considering how he used to have the amount of what 5 Kages would have, it was quite a large decrease. Ah well, win some and lose some. No biggie. Searching intently for any power source that was close to him, anything that might pose even the slightest of threats to him, Naruto closed his eyes as he tried to pinpoint a location. It wouldn't be long before he felt his gut sink. So it really is MBI headquarters, just great. Shutting off Sage Mode, Naruto slowly got up, stretched his limbs a bit. Making popping noises as he loosened some of his stiff joints, he set off a brisk pace towards his destination. XX. Run away. Must escape. How could he? Those were the only thoughts in the mind of a certain sekirei as she desperately tried to get away from where she was. She had been so filled with hope that she could be fixed. Even when that moron of a researcher had caused her to reach her potential prematurely, losing her the only chance of being winged, she hadn't given up hope. But now, they gave the final verdict, and were going to lock her in the laboratories to do more research on her. No! There was no way that she would be denied any longer. She needed to breathe the fresh air she knew was just a wall away. She wanted to smell the trees and flowers that were but a few steps away. She longed to meet someone who could have become her Ashikabi, anyone who would want her. She would gladly lay down her life to fulfill whatever purpose she might have had for her. Hardening her gaze, she felt a certain bitterness as she rushed past a hallway filled with mirrors. That sekirei crest, for the first time in her life, looked ugly and disconcerting. That was the proof staring at her right in her face, mocking her that she would never be able to be winged, just like what that researcher had done. When she had woken up, all she could hear were the frenzied cries of that insolent whelp. Something had obviously gone wrong with her tuning because she felt way stronger than she should. It was as though she was already at 100% of her power, but that couldn't be. Surely this could be fixed if he would actually reverse whatever it was that he did. It would be a few hours later when the head researcher Takami had personally come over to apologize to her on the mistake that was made. Her world seemed to collapse when she was informed that she was winged preterm, and that she would not be able to experience the winging process that was the entire purpose of her existence. What's worse, she would never know what her Naruto was, what that feeling of love would feel like when her Ashikabi would hold her in his arms, her with affection reserved only for her, and feel for herself that warmth that would arise as the power surged through her veins. All of that was now for naught. Scrap number, they called her who used to be number 7, one of the stronger single digits, and someone who had high hopes of finding a strong Ashikabi. Having more sekirei certainly made an Ashikabi stronger, but the fact that some sekirei were more skilled than others meant that it really was quality over quantity sometimes. She had felt proud when Takami had first informed her of this, and had been looking forward to meeting her destined one all the while, only for this bombshell to be dropped on her. She didn't even know what to feel. Hatred? For that stupid, arrogant researcher? Yes, but that wouldn't change anything, would it? Despair? For not being able to ever feel that sense of ownership to her Ashikabi? Maybe. Anger? For them wanting to still coop her up despite all the damage they've already done? In the end, it all boiled down to negative emotions, and she didn't like it one bit. She was one of the quieter sekirei out there, rarely ever speaking up unless she had to. She would constantly be aware of the surroundings, choosing to learn as much as she could by watching and analyzing. She would listen attentively to the chatter around her, picking out whatever she could that could help her in any way possible. Most thought she was just cold and indifferent, a representation of her powers, but that was incorrect. She just didn't see a point in wasting energy over useless matters. Why should she show any emotion at all over something that would change nothing? Was she supposed to be happy and greet everyone with enthusiasm just because they were adjusting her? Would it even matter? Get her. Don't let her escape. Retrieve her at all costs. Send for the disciplinary squad. Her entire body tensed at the mention of the disciplinary squad. If that woman ever arrived before she could leave the building, it would pretty much eliminate any chances she had in escaping this hellhole. She knew how strong the black sekirei was, and with her current state, she doubted that she would be able to hold her off for any more than 30 seconds. Rushing through the hallways, she desperately tried to make her way towards the back exit as soon as she could. The soldiers rushing behind her, and the din that they created only served to heighten the tension within her. Just a few more rooms to go and I'll be out of here. Gunshots being fired at her were easily repelled by her glacial powers. With a wave of her hand, she created a thick ice shield behind her back, easily defending herself against those bullets. These insolent humans were of no threat to her, and they had to know that. So why have they stopped there? Before she could even continue that line of thought, a Nodaichi pierced right through her guard, easily penetrating her torso as she was stopped dead in her tracks. A hard hook to the face followed right after she forcefully removed herself from the blade, and hot blistering pain rained down her back as a metal claw caught her right from the shoulder down to the hip. Not wasting any time to even think about the severity of the injuries she currently had, she used whatever remaining energy she had and aimed it right at the floor beneath her. Adjusting her body position in midair, she launched herself right through the glass doors of MBI headquarters, before she landed hard onto the concrete ground of the car park. Fresh, cold air blew itself against her face even as she felt her conscience slowly fading away. A rush of footsteps surrounded her before arms grabbed hold of her body, attempting to put her into submission, only for her to resist and send miniature icicles to fend them off. She could tell that the black sekirei was watching her on the sidelines, her bloodlust obvious as it permeated through the dark night sky. Only she would know just how mortally injured she was with that stab of her Nodaichi. It had very narrowly missed her sekirei core, and had that been damaged, then it would have been a level 5 injury straight away. As it was now, it was still a level 4, so it wasn't that much better. She knew what number 4 was thinking. That sekirei always had a sadistic streak in her. She wanted her to bleed to a level 5 injury before she took her back in. Such was the cruel nature of Karasuba, the dog of MBI. It was then where a voice rang through the area. "Alright, that's enough. Who gave you guys orders to manhandle a sekirei? Release her this instant." A woman with gray hair wearing a lab coat with a black top underneath it was seen rushing to the scene as she barked orders for the military to stand down. Sahashi Takami, what was she doing here? "But madam, this sekirei is now useless. It's all her fault that she screwed up the adjusting process. I claim no responsibility to this incident." Rage gripped at her as the voice of that man that had ruined her life echoed through the area. It's much better to lock her up in the laboratories where we use her as a specimen for. Smack! With one swift move, that obnoxious researcher was sent crashing into the ground, holding his jaw in disbelief as he stared up at Takami. Why you? How dare why you? What he got in return was an enraged glare from a woman who had lost all patience. You had better keep your mouth shut if you want to live to see tomorrow. Or would you like to taste firsthand the power of the disciplinary squad? That was enough to intimidate the man and silence him to his sniffles of pain. Kneeling down, Takami quickly gave a check of her injuries, before motioning for the medical staff to do some emergency treatment. Hurry! It's a level 4 injury. She's gonna go into shock soon if we don't do something. Wondering just why this woman was helping her, the sekirei allowed them their administrations, the pills and injections, but to no avail. She could feel it herself, her life was wasting away. Leave her be. A boisterous voice resonated in her ears as she heard Takami swear under her breath. What is your problem now, Minaka? Can't you see I'm in the middle of something? If looks could kill, Minaka would have died at least a few 100 million times within that last second. Ha ha, why so serious, Takami-kun? There really is no need to treat her. She's a scrap number, and seeing how she so wanted to leave the laboratories, I shall grant her that wish. With dramatic flair, Minaka Hiroto, chairman of MBI Corporation, announced, all troops are to return to their normal posts. Medical staff members are to finish their current emergency treatments, nothing more, nothing less. Takami-kun, come, there is still much to discuss about, blurg. Before he could even finish his sentence, a reeling kick met his face without hesitation as he was trampled into the ground. Who the hell told you I would be following those orders? You just shut up and stay down. Medical staff, you're under my command and will do as I say, or else. Her eyes took on a relatively demonic tint, easily convincing them to carry on with their treatment of the fallen sekirei. Ugh, that's so mean of you, Takami-kun. But that's what I like about you. The fact that he got up as if no harm was done to him at all was quite impressive. That, or he was used to the physical harm administered to him on a daily basis. Minaka, I'm warning you. Cracking her knuckles, Takami stomped towards the most infuriating man she had ever met in her life. Disciplinary squad, please escort her to my office for now. What? Within seconds, she was restricted by Bennett, Tsubasa, and Heihain, leaving a stunned expression on her face as she looked at Minaka. You would go so far as to send a sekirei to her death? What is wrong with you? Ahahaha. Relax, Takami-kun. This is all for the sake of the game. The holy sekirei plan. This is what I love most about the plan. Factors that would not have been accounted for would create anomalies in the equation. This is a perfect example of the pleasant surprise I'm talking about. And just how is this situation a pleasant surprise? Yelling, Takami tried her best to wrestle her way out of the grasps of the two sekirei, but alas, they were just too much stronger than she was. A little birdie, born different to others, now facing elimination in a world where survival of the fittest is the golden rule of life. What would possibly be her end? Would she end up with her life wasting away? Or would she finally find the thing that she was born to seek for? Ah, the suspense. I cannot take it any longer. You crazy mad-ass fool. Unhand me this instance. Medical staff, by my orders, you are to finish your current emergency treatments and leave. We shall not interfere with her desire to escape from us. Guards are to stand down and let the disciplinary squad take charge. Once she steps onto that road, she shall no longer be accepted back in the MBI building. Ahahaha. This is gonna be great. At that particular moment, alarms started blaring all over the building, drawing the instant attention of the guards and the disciplinary squad. Without a word, Karasoba rushed off, along with the other two members of the squad, followed by the soldiers. Minaka frowned in displeasure at being interrupted halfway through his speech and could only sigh lamely as he finished off his orders in an anticlimactic manner. Takami, on the other hand, could only gape at the coincidence of all this. If she didn't have absolute faith in MBI's security system, then she would go out on a tangent and say that this was actually planned by someone. Come, Takami-kun, we must return to the laboratories at once. Without looking back, Minaka was already making his way back into the building. The gray-haired woman hesitated for a few seconds, took one last look at the scrapped number lying on the ground, before rushing off as well. After all, if someone had dared breach their security, She had to make sure none of their secrets were stolen. The bleeding sekirei could barely understand what was going on all this time, and only barely managed to retain her consciousness as she felt the treatments coming to an end. By the time she was able to lift her head up, the entire front car park was rid of people. It was just her alone and the concrete ground. Knowing something must have happened for this retreat, she wasted no time in continuing her escape. Due to a lack of strength because of the blood loss, she had to half crawl, half drag her body across the car park, before finally, her entire body left the grounds of the MBI headquarters. Not even daring to stop for a moment, she braved on, forcing herself to ignore the searing pain with each movement she made. I will survive this, I must survive this. XX. She had no idea how long she had been crawling for, but judging from her surroundings, this was a park of some sort. Her clothing was now in tatters after her fights within MBI headquarters. Pulling herself with what was left of her strength, she forced herself into a sitting position on one of the benches. So tired. Staring blankly into the ground before her, she could even begin to think of what she should do now. Her injuries were severe, and though they have been given some treatment, it was hardly enough. She was never going to return to MBI, so where could she go? And what would she do after that? Where should she start looking for her ashikabi? Where would she be staying on cold nights like this? How was she going to get food for herself? Question after question bombarded her already fragile mind as she slowly felt the fatigue creep into her once again. Somehow, she felt like laughing. Just like before, she sat alone on the bench, all by herself, not commenting when everyone else had made friends with each other. In the end, I guess that man was right. What good am I if I can't be winged? I really am broken. It was then that sounds of a car screeching to a halt resonated through the area. The sekirei really wasn't paying much attention to her surroundings anymore. Disappointment filled her even as she felt weakness in every fiber of her being. She was just so tired. Matsu. That's the one you were telling me about, isn't it? The one you said had escaped. A childish voice made its presence known as its owner entered the area, bouncing on the tips of his feet in excitement at the possibility of winging another sekirei. Yes, but I doubt she would be of any use to you though, Mikagami. She is suffering from quite severe injuries. Besides, she can't be winged. The ever-so-silent Matsu spoke up in a calm tone, easily dismissing his ashikabi's excitement. Yeah? What do you mean can't be winged? The slim teenager whined as though he had just been denied his favorite toy. But I want her. At that, the sekirei's ears twitched slightly. Her amber eyes slowly glanced over to where that boy was debating with what appeared to be his sekirei. He wants me? What for? I'm just a broken tool now. What could I possibly bring to the table? She's not going to be of any use to you, Mikagami. She can't use a Naruto. Matsu sighed in exasperation. So what? It'll be fun to have her with us. She'll be like our mascot or something. I don't know, I don't care. I just want her with me. It seemed like the brown-haired boy was now throwing a tantrum. She needs treatment immediately, and unfortunately, you don't own a hospital. What are you going to do? Who cares? As long as I can have her for 1 minute, I don't care. She's gonna be my new toy. He only wants me for a toy. A bitter smile rose to her as she understood the current situation. She could already feel her body going into shock. I guess this is the end of my little adventure. I'm sorry, my ashikabi, wherever you are. There are so many things that I wanted to do for you. I had imagined how I would love you, cherish you and protect you with my entire being, cutting down all that stood in your way, obeying your every order and accomplishing all that you wished to achieve. I wanted to be held by you, in your arms, where you would softly whisper to me just how much you loved me, and all those sweet words that would make me feel like I'm the most loved being in the world. Slowly closing her eyes, tuning out the ranting of that teenage boy, she chose to enjoy her last moments on this world, even as she felt her life slipping away. My dear ashikabi, if you had been able to meet me had my adjusting turned out correct, what would you think of me? I know I don't talk a lot, and I seem pretty forgetful at times, but I know you wouldn't mind. You would simply flick my forehead every time I forgot something and tease me playfully. If only I could meet you even for just a while, just for me to tell you how much I want to be with you. Ikuhasashiku, forever eternal. Just as she was prepared to meet her end, a pair of strong arms gently circled themselves around her torso, with a pale green light covering her entire body before a soft voice whispered to her, "To think that you would go so far. I only hope you can forgive me for being so selfish." "What? Who are you?" "I am your Ashikabi, the one to protect you as you sleep, the one to stay beside you as you live, and the one to love you for eternity. I swear by my honor as a Sannin, that I will never let you be alone ever again." "Really? You won't abandon me? I cannot be winged. I'm but a failed product, a broken tool. Do you still want me even when you know all this?" "Yes." "Thank you. Even if it was a lie, I thank you." "Haha, do you think I need to lie to my own sekirei?" What do you mean? Can you not feel the bond that is between us? I am speaking to you directly through our link. Can you not feel it? This warm feeling, those words you speak, but how can it be? I cannot be winged. Bonds come in all forms. I believe my chakra has successfully imprinted onto your core by now. Surely you can feel it. Ah, yes. I can feel it spiraling through my entire body. Such a nice feeling. Do you trust me, my Sekirei-chan? Aye. It's okay, take your time. Yes, my Ashikabi-sama. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet ya. Hehe, what a strange name. Yeah, I get that a lot. Well then, my Ashikabi-sama, Sekirei number 7, Akitsu, the Ice Sekirei at your service. Welcome to my world, Aki-chan. Before she knew it, the scenery changed as her eyes slowly fluttered open. The pain that used to mar her torso was now completely gone. She now felt clearly the arms of the man who was currently holding her, only this time, he was sitting with her face to face. Studying his features, she felt her heart beat just that much faster, but quickly passed it off as something else. There was no point thinking that she was reacting to him if she couldn't be winged. All in all, he fitted the image which she had painted multiple times for what she had imagined her Ashikabi would be like. Tall, strong, blonde hair, a face with a feral quality that had her blushing to no end, and a voice so soft and gentle that she could feel the raw love behind it. Not caring that she no longer seemed to be in the park anymore, nor the fact that they were both naked as the day they were born, her amber orbs stared into his sky blue ones, seeing for herself the genuine concern, affection, and care he had for her even as he pulled her towards him for a gentle hug. The silence was broken as she accepted the hug, tears slowly beginning to fall as she finally realized that this was not a dream. She really was hugging the man that was speaking to her just now. Thank you, Ashikabi-sama. Her master only raised an eyebrow, before giving her a playful smirk. You thought I was lying to you, eh? Blushing, she sputtered to gather a suitable response, only to find her chin lifted up, allowing their eyes to make contact once more. Those beautiful cerulean eyes, windows to his soul, telling her so much about his personality and character, as though she had known him for a very long time. I will be your Ashikabi. I will protect, cherish, and whisper sweet words to you whenever I can. I shall tease you whenever you do something silly and flick your forehead whenever you forget about something. Naruto smiled softly as he gently wiped off the tears that were now falling without restraint. And I will love you, Aki-chan, with all my heart. Will you accept me as your Ashikabi? Yes. Yes, I will. Falling into his embrace, Akitsu couldn't help but sob in despair and sorrow. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be of more use to you, Ashikabi-sama. I wish, oh how I wish I could make you feel just how much I love you. Aye. Instead of agreeing with her, Naruto simply leaned into her face, his forehead touching hers even as her eyes shone of regret and dismay. Then show me. With that, his arms circled around her waist, gently pulled her towards him and at her. It was such a simple act, something that he hadn't done for heaven knows how long, but it felt right. He could already feel the bond between them forming, him from his chakra core, her from her sekirei core. It was something mystical-like and acted on both a physical and mental level. He could literally feel her, as though she was one with him, and just like that, all her emotions poured into him in a rushing torrent. Her desperation in wanting to reassure that she truly thanked him and loved him. Her despair and disappointment that she could never be winged. And finally, her confusion and surprise at how she knew that he was feeling everything she felt a few moments ago. Akitsu would never forget that day when wings of a bright aqua burst into life during their intimate. The sense of peace and satisfaction that filled her entire body like a warm liquid flowing soothingly through her veins would be a precious memory to her for the years to come. Disengaging from the the eyes sekirei could only stare in disbelief at the wings that have just now dissipated. Her dumbfounded expression brought a chuckle to her ashikabi, and with a on her forehead, he whispered for her to check whether her sekirei crest was where it should be. Still caught up in the recent chain of events, she numbly followed his words and rested her hand behind her neck. In an instant she knew it was there, the pulsing energy that rolled off it in waves, and shape of it, and the imprint of her ashikabi's energy so familiar and clear. Still unable to take in the fact that she had actually undergone the winging process, she could only murmur in wonder. But how? Chuckling at how cute his sekirei looked at the moment, Naruto gave a nonchalant shrug before answering, "Let's just say, some friends of mine in the live stream helped me out." Live stream? What do you mean, ah? Before she could continue with the sentence, a certain action by Naruto was enough to have her blushing to the neck. "Unfortunately, Aki-chan, I can't answer your questions yet. I believe we have more important matters to attend to right now." "As Shikabi-sama?" Her voice was quivering as the blonde gently eased himself into her, his eyes filled with desire. "You are mine, Akitsu, for now and eternity, just like I am yours." With an intensity that took the eyes sekirei by storm, Naruto captured her once more as she felt that dizzy feeling once again as pleasant sensations began to arise from certain areas of her anatomy. The love and lust he felt for her was clear as the sky, and to her own surprise she felt her need and want for him was what had egged him on. They were truly sharing a bond now, emotionally and physically, on a level she would never have imagined possible. She could feel her entire soul melting into his, and all of a sudden, the need to feel him, touch him, love him became almost unbearable. "Yes, my Ashikabi-sama, take me." Even as she experienced ecstasy beyond her wildest dreams, almost to the point where she felt like any more happiness, and she would burst, she knew what he was doing. He was claiming her as his own so that no matter what may happen in the future, their bond would always remain firm. Again and again, he brought her to the highest heights, never letting her fall before driving her once again to a shattering frenzy that threatened to engulf her soul. After what seemed to be an eternity, she let out one long, satisfied sigh, before resting limply against the blonde who barely even looked like he was panting, though the thin sheet of sweat that covered his body would say otherwise. With an alluring smile that the previous Akitsu would never have known, she once again pulled her Ashikabi-sama close to her, their foreheads touching, barely millimeters apart, their breathing synchronized as they quietly enjoyed the silence around them. "Just who are you, my Ashikabi-sama?" Her voice was light and playful, though still retaining some of that cool tone she used to speak with, making it an eccentric combination that seemed all the more enticing to the blonde, who was currently sporting a grin so wide it threatened to split his face. "Why, you already know the answer, Aki-chan. I am your Ashikabi, of course, for as long as you would like me to be." "Hehe, then it's settled. Ikavasashiku any, forever eternal, right?" "Haha, Wagata Ikahasashiku de yo Akitsu, yes Akitsu, forever eternal." Chapter 2, Just a Coincidence. The sekirei crest, a symbol of ownership to those who have been winged by their ashikabi. It was truly a magnificent thing, how the sekirei were all born with such an artifact on them, restraining them from reaching their full potential before they matured enough. What had actually caught Naruto's attention was the yin-yang seal at the bottom of the crest. That was what had got him to think about what he could actually do to dissect it, analyze it, and work through it. Just a few hours ago, he had followed his instinct, arrived at the MBI headquarters, and witnessed the entire procedure of Akitsu's escape. It was he who had a clone trigger the security alarms present to act as a diversion. He could have helped the Eye Sekirei at many different intervals, but in the end he chose not to, simply for the fact that he still wasn't sure if he wanted to be involved in all this. 1,000 years ago, when his clones had discovered the spaceship, he had already known the trouble it would bring to modern society. The technology present on the spaceship was far too impressive. Just why did they choose to crash on Earth of all planets? Why were there already a pillar, 7 infants and 100 other embryos? Did that number pose a hint of some sort? Was there a hidden meaning waiting for humans to salvage? There was just too little information for him to go by, and besides, MBI seemed to be doing a good job of it anyway, so he decided to simply leave it and let fate do its work. He couldn't control everything in this world after all, seeing the effort that it would take him would be incredible. Naruto was never one for a god complex where he must know about everything that was going on. The reason for creating Trinity Inc. by his clones was probably to provide him a way to ensure that peace could be maintained. The power of wealth and resources was enough for all the countries to think twice about crossing a corporation as great as theirs, which was another reason why MBI was so successful. The technology they had, the breakthroughs they made were all crucial for a country's development. The greed of the government ensured that they would be the only ones to benefit from such breakthroughs, which would in turn give them the protection that they wanted. Naruto was doing the same thing with Trinity Inc., only that he was doing it in the western part of the world. That being said, he was still hesitant in joining something as pointless as the sekirei plan. It was obvious this Manaka person was just a lunatic playing with his newfound toys, or rather, forcing the newfound toys to play for him. So far, Naruto had yet to witness the man do something seriously dangerous, and hence felt no need to take action against him. You've got to let the antagonists have their fun before you destroy them after all. It was like a universal rule or something. So he sat back and watched from the shadows. The blonde could easily read the thoughts that were going through the Eye Sekirei's mind, seeing how he had activated Sage Mode and locked his own chakra onto her being. And to say that he was shocked by the absolute devotion she had towards finding one that would love her would be a severe understatement. This was the first time since he woke up that he actually felt overwhelmed by the emotions present within an individual, much less a sekirei that was suffering from a level 4 injury, soon to be level 5. Naruto watched on as she slowly dragged her way to the park, his heart wrenching in pain as he had to force himself to hold back the urge to save her right then and there. He knew that would not be something the sekirei wanted. She wanted to try and find for herself the ashikabi she had always dreamed of, not given to her out of pity. It was just so daunting to see a woman who was bleeding so profusely, relentlessly drag herself across the concrete, ignoring how much pain she was in, disregarding whether or not she might die in the next minute or two, and just keep on with her pace. The final straw for Naruto was when she had looked so lonely on the bench by herself, her thoughts filled with her desire to be with her one and only. Mutters of how she was broken and useless were all he could take before he finally decided to take action. Though it should be noted that the stupid brat who was yapping on the side was also beginning to get on his nerves, but that was just a minor reason. This is so nostalgic, it's just like Haku II. But I guess Haku still had Zabuza despite all that. This poor thing doesn't have anyone at all. What the heck, who cares how stupid this sekirei plan could end up? There's no reason for me not to do anything simply because I fear of things that have yet to happen. I am Uzumaki Naruto, damn it. Who the heck am I afraid of? It was then where he cast his specialty jutsu, space/time jutsu. He had been researching it for the last 50 years of his life, so naturally it would be something he was quite familiar with. Many people wondered what exactly the other dimensions out there were, and what could possibly be done to manipulate them. Naruto had dedicated his research to that particular question and had a better understanding of it than probably anyone in the world ever did, surpassing his father with ease. He wasn't the most unpredictable ninja for nothing. After his interaction with Mother Nature and the life stream, he gained an even better understanding of time, and how its power was so absolute and glorious that any of the other elements would pale in comparison to it. He had actually zoomed in on the crest that was present on the sekirei's forehead, broken it down in another dimension even as he was speaking to her through the mental bond he had established with her using his sage chakra, took the time to make sure he had his facts right. Then after he was satisfied with how the sekirei felt, and realizing what he had to do to cure her, Naruto allowed her into the dimension he was working in. The only real downside of doing all that was extreme exhaustion afterwards, but seeing how Naruto had quite a fountain of chakra, it would simply mean depleting all his reserves in one go. He would still be healthy and awake, but definitely not be in any position to fight afterwards. For Naruto, when he first discovered this, he figured it was a fair price to pay. It's not like he would lose limbs and all that, and chakra could always be regenerated, it just took a while. That being said, the solution was actually really simple. At least, for Naruto it was. The reason why the researchers could not reverse the damage done was because the crest had already been locked in. It was under the impression that the sekirei had already reached full potential, and hence the limiter all sekirei was born with kicked in to prevent any further growth of the sekirei. Had she actually undergone the winging process, that natural limiter would have been shut off after the ashikabi's DNA imprint was successful, and she would really be allowed to reach her true potential. This was not something current technology could overcome, seeing how it would mean completely restructuring the sekirei's DNA, which would be equal to creating a sekirei from scratch. Way too much risk and trouble. For the blonde shinobi, however, that crest was just another seal to him. After breaking the seal equation down, he realized that the yin-yang symbol was the key, and the 4 commas surrounding it only acted as secondary seals to back up the main function of the sekirei crest. At first he thought the wagtail symbol meant absolutely nothing, as surprising as it was to discover. Perhaps it was a way to identify her as a sekirei? Not giving that much thought, he had drawn upon his sage chakra, deciphered the seal as his forehead met with Akitsu the first time as he diverted her attention away from what he was doing with little chit-chat, then by establishing a connection with Mother Nature. He was able to force open the yin-yang clamp and cleanse the essence of the sekirei, effectively reconfiguring the balances of energy within the sekirei, and that was the reason why the Akitsu had felt the spiral of energy within her. By the time they had ended, Naruto had already ensured that the components of the seal were now in perfect harmony, and hence, it was then possible for Akitsu to be winged. Ah, the joys of knowing Fuinjutsu, still useful even after 2,000 years in modern society. He was, however, taken aback by how strongly he could feel his sekirei's emotions, and how much effect they had on him for the first time. It was like his most carnal desires were being brought out of him, forcing him to understand just how much she loved him. That desire was then transferred over back to her, where she understood just how much he needed her, given his current state of exhaustion in terms of chakra reserves, and sure enough, both their brains then proceeded to give them the most logical order they had commanded them to mate. It was then that Naruto truly understood the need for the little wagtail picture to be above the yin-yang construct. One of the basics in Fuinjutsu was that everything had to be balanced in this world for things to grow. A certain amount of yin and a corresponding amount of yang had to be maintained if growth was to be expected. A prime example would be the process of reproduction, females being the yin part of it, males being the yang part of it. Was she actually able to feel the exact balance that was required for us to be in top form? Yes, that was the thing. The sekirei were born with the ability to control the balance of energy within them, and their ashikabi. A simple example would be how they used Naruto. Why was it that their ashikabi gave them the power they needed to unleash a power that was otherwise sealed? They needed a specific type of energy that was compatible with their own to fill in the missing pieces. That was the whole purpose of the winging process. To establish the yin-yang balance within themselves. Having understood that, Naruto had no more doubts of what the mating session would do for him. Even as they finally became one, the blonde shinobi could feel his chakra growing at an alarming rate. It was as though someone was recharging the battery within him, and he could only laugh in realization as Akitsu gazed up at him with those loving eyes. Sekirei really were meant to be with humans of the opposite. Poor Mutsu, I'm sure he too realizes that he can't ever reach the same potential as the others. That must mean that he figured his current ashikabi was more important to him than simply gaining more power. Feeling the change in her ashikabi, Akitsu rested her head affectionately on his shoulder, placing tender yes along his neckline before murmuring, "Penny for your thoughts." Shaking his head, Naruto merely grinned, just thinking about how I should explain to the landlady when we get home. I'm pretty sure she doesn't permit acts like this within the building. Eh? Nuzzling his chin, the eyes sekirei put on a pitiful pout, but it feels so. Watching the blush that slowly grew on her cheeks, the blonde couldn't help but laugh once again. It has been quite a while since I've been able to laugh like this. I should be thanking you, Aki-chan. You know, now that you've mentioned it, where exactly are we? Akitsu, for the first time since she's been here, paid more attention to her surroundings. She had more pressing matters before, and hence failed to care too much about it, but now that she's focused, she could literally feel a force field around the area where they were currently at. Have a guess? He replied playfully, caressing her cheek at the same time. Leaning into his touch, the eyes sekirei frowned slightly, her eyes tense and concentrated as she tried to think of an answer that she knew her ashikabi expected her to know. From what she could tell, they were literally in a different place, nothing like the park she was in before. Considering how he had actually talked to her while she was sitting on the bench, and the next thing she knew, he was here by her side, then that must mean. It can't be. Just how strong are you? Her eyes widened as she came to the realization as to what Naruto must have done. Her ashikabi simply gave her a shrug, before grinning, "Didn't you just find that out?" Wagging his eyebrows, one could just tell that his inner pervert was showing again. Blushing harder than ever, the eyes sekirei could only hold her cheeks in embarrassment. Ashikabi-sama. Watching her fidget uncomfortably, Naruto flicked her on the forehead, earning a cutie tie from her. So? Are you still gonna go with that brat out there who wanted you to be his toy? Akitsu almost gave in to the urge to roll her eyes even as her Ashikabi asked that question. Seriously, was he trying to be funny? Ah! You have to answer my question, Aki-chan. No, is she actually glaring at me? Alright, jokes aside, it really has been a long day. Why don't you try out your powers now that they've stabilized? Blinking, the eyes sekirei glanced at her palm, before giving a firm nod. Hi Ashikabi-sama. Seeing her determination, Naruto couldn't help but reminisce the time when Haku fought him with a renewed confidence after knowing just how much Sabuza had cared for him. The want to be needed really resided in everyone's hearts, it would seem. Just one last thing, Aki-chan. HM? Call me by name, will ya? Hi Naruto-sama. Sigh, you just had to add the sama in. You really don't need to respect me this much, you know? Why No. Her tone was firm this time, unwilling to relent on this particular point. Naruto blinked foolishly for a few seconds, before asking tentatively, Aki-chan? Naruto-sama is my Ashikabi, the one to save me from my sorrow, to give me hope and joy, and most importantly, he gave me the chance to attempt all the things that I could only dream of doing. I will show him the respect that he deserves. Anyone who dares speak to him in any disrespectful way, I will make sure to eliminate them. Her eyes burned with a resolve that Naruto honestly didn't expect from her, at least not for something like this. No, it's okay, Aki-chan. Besides, I don't want to be respected all day long. Sometimes, it is better to joke around about things like that, so there's no need to kill someone just for my sake. Stroking her soft, brown hair, Naruto pulled her in for an embrace. I don't want a killing machine to defend my honor. I want the Aki-chan that was thinking all those loving thoughts when we first connected. I want the original you, Akitsu, nothing more, nothing less. Feeling the sincerity in his words, the eyes sekirei could not help but smile amorously once more. I understand, Naruto-sama. I won't disappoint you. Sweet, now go out there, and show them what you do with stupid brats that make outrageous claim. Any? Hi, Naruto-sama. XX. The sight that greeted Akitsu's eyes when she opened her eyes once more was the soothing scenery of the night sky. Blinking, her pupils slowly regained focus as the bickering of a certain brat continued. Turning her head slightly, she took a closer look at her surroundings, only to find that she was right back in the park. The fact that was surprising was that not much time seemed to have passed at all. The proof that she got was how number 5 and his Ashikabi were still in the exact positions as they were when she had disappeared from the park, with the young whelp raging about how he wanted her for his new toy. This proved her theory of what exactly her Ashikabi had done, and she couldn't help but feel immense pride welling up within her. To think that he would have access to such power amazed her to no end. What happened to all those lectures by the researchers that it was the sekirei who would have the definite edge when it came to strength, speed and pure destructive supremacy? From the looks of it, her Ashikabi was capable of a much wider variety of abilities if he was able to stop time and then pick it up as though nothing happened whatsoever. Matsu didn't even realize what was going on here. Suddenly, a fear gripped Akitsu, and without any hesitation, she rushed over to the fountain that was located just a few steps away from her bench. Ah! She's getting away! Hurry, Matsu! Mikagami shrieked in a panicked tone. Sigh, why do I even bother? Groaning in exasperation, the ground sekirei disappeared in a blur, unsheathing his blade in the process. I would say sorry, but as you know, an Ashikabi's orders are absolute. Akitsu paid no attention to him at all, even when he was right behind her, katana poised and ready to strike. Without even thinking, she simply waved her hand behind her, muttering, "Icicle barrier." Imagine the surprise on the number 5 sekirei's face as icicles started bursting out from the ground directly beneath him, forcing him to change his direction at the last moment, barely evading the strike. Wasn't she supposed to be severely injured? The earth sekirei did a backflip in the air, easily steadying himself before he rammed his sword into the ground, sending blocks of earth right at the somewhat dazed Akitsu. Without a single care for it, she simply waved her hand once more, launching those icicles of hers right into those rocks, easily nullifying the attack. Her eyes, however, never left the fountain as she gazed right into the water, watching her reflection ripple with the water. It really is true then. Mutsu raised an eyebrow as he charged out of the rubble created from their last attack, before coming to a dead stop. His eyes widened in shock as he now stared at the Ice Sekirei face to face for the first time. "What are you doing, Mutsu? Hurry up and grab her!" Mikagami, who had had enough of waiting for the Earth Sekirei to grab him his new toy, had taken it upon himself to try and speed up the process by barking orders at him, only to find himself staring at the toy he was looking for, with something almost akin to awe. Where a large Sekirei crest should have been branded on her forehead, now resided nothing but her pale, porcelain skin. Tears could be seen running down her cheeks as she gave them what was perhaps the most beautiful and dazzling smile to ever grace her. One could almost feel the happiness that was currently emanating from her, generating something like an aura even as she whispered in her cool, soft voice, "My Ashikabi awaits me." Mikagami and Mutsu found themselves rooted to the spot, with the young Ashikabi gaping with his mouth wide open. This was just too much of a contrast from the one he had seen just minutes ago. How could something so broken be so? "Thank you?" The Ice Sekirei smiled even as Mikagami tried to get his head around why he was being thanked. "If it weren't for your appearance, I would never have thought things through clearly enough to understand what I truly wanted." Closing her eyes and remembering the warm feeling that spread through her entire body every time her Ashikabi whispered those three incredible words in her ear, she continued, "Had you come a few minutes later, I might have been resigned to my fate and decided to leave with you. But as it is," her amber eyes reopened, showing within them a determination and resolve that was captivating beyond words, "I thank you for wanting me, even if it wasn't for the reasons I had hoped for." But words seemed to fail the young Ashikabi as he struggled to find a way to reply to the Sekirei in front of him. He had a feeling that he had already lost her, but he still wanted to give it one more try somehow, just to see if he could still get her. Akitsu simply smiled, before bowing once more, this time to Mutsu instead. "Thank you for trying to stop him from taking me forcefully the first time round." With that, she gave them one final nod, before leaping into the air, intent on finding just where her Ashikabi was hiding. "I'll wait a minute! Mutsu! She's getting away! Get her!" It took him a while, but Mikagami finally made the connection between the supposed scrap number jumping off in the opposite direction and how he probably wasn't going to get a new toy if he simply stood there and watched like a fool. "Mikagami, she's already been winged. There really is no point." "I don't care. I want her. Go!" Sigh without another word, the Earth Sekirei rushed off after his target, ready to take her down with minimal fuss if possible. Before long, the two Sekirei were engaged in a projectile combat, with Akitsu mainly on the defensive, seeing how she wasn't that intent on battling right now. She had more pressing matters at the moment, so she was more diverting any rock blast sent at her as she continued to speed off at an alarming pace. Smashing point. Once again, Mutsu landed with grace that was otherwise unexpected from males, before slamming the butt of his scabbard into the ground, generating rock fissures as shockwaves pulsed all around him. Akitsu retaliated with elegance of her own, mimicking his move but using ice instead. Icicle strike! Just like before, the two attacks collided right on with each other, either really doing much in the damage department to either Sekirei. It was quite obvious that unless Mutsu was able to get closer to Akitsu and force her into close-quarter combat, there really would be no point in launching projectile attacks anymore. "I have many questions that I want to ask, but it doesn't look like you will answer them, does it?" Mutsu muttered as he eyed the Ice Sekirei cautiously. Realizing that he wasn't going to be getting a reply, other than the icy stare he was receiving, Mutsu could only grumble in annoyance, "You know you can't get away from me. Even if my attacks can't reach you now, I'll be able to keep up with you. You don't have as much stamina as I do, so I don't see why you can't just come quietly. It would save me a lot of trouble and you'd get to rest after your miraculous winging." Unbeknownst to Mutsu, Akitsu wasn't exactly paying attention to him. She was thinking back to that mischievous grin her beloved Ashikabi had on even as he told her to try out her powers. For some reason, the Ice Sekirei was sure that her blonde master had something else in mind when it came to her powers. Even before she was winged, she had experimented on all her abilities and found that she could control them with ease, so why did he feel that she would need to try out something new? Unless... No, it can't be, but how would he know that I cannot? Ignoring the twitching Mutsu, who was annoyed that he had been ignored all this time, Akitsu raised her right hand and aimed it directly at the number 5 sekirei. I'm sorry. I need to try something out. Without even waiting for a reply from a skeptical Mutsu, the eyes sekirei began chanting, and with each word that left her pale, an aqua aura shimmered around her entire body. By the frosts of my pledge. What the didn't a sekirei need to be ed before they could use their Naruto? Freeze the demons of my Ashikabi. Sure, before Mutsu could even begin his evasion, torrents of ice rushed the entire forest area, encasing all objects that stood in its way, covering the entire area in a firm layer of frost. Mutsu, who had just barely gotten out of the way, was about to breathe a sigh of relief, when a second reinforced blast was aimed straight in his direction with her left hand, the increased speed catching him by surprise as it successfully ensnared him in an icy coffin. The eyes sekirei then lifted her fingers to her, at once gently, before holding them out in front of her, diamond dust. With a resounding snap of her fingers, the entire area exploded in a frenzy of white, engulfing everything that was covered by frost, leaving the entire region clean and devoid of life. It was quite lucky for Mutsu as the guy had procured another rock fissure the moment the ice coffin shattered around him, temporarily shielding him from the ice attack. He had taken the brunt of the damage, gritted his teeth as he withstood it, and quickly designed his route of escape. Even then, it had taken everything he had to be able to get out of the way of the overwhelming blast. Having a wide area effect attack as your Naruto certainly made you all the more dangerous. It would seem that the scrap number really was winged, and to think she would hold such power within her. It was just unthinkable as to how strong she would be once the bond between herself and her Ashikabi grew stronger. If possible, he would still like to ask how it was that she was able to use her Naruto in the absence of her Ashikabi, but seeing how he was now sporting level 3 injuries that include a 3rd-degree frostbite on his left leg, broken femur in his right leg, broken ribs and 2nd-degree frostbite on his chest muscles, plus plain exhaustion after having to escape from such an unexpected attack, he decided he had other things to prioritize. Looks like I really am getting soft to think that I, number 5, would be defeated so completely by a single digit behind me. A harsh coughing fit caught him the moment he reached safe ground just a few feet away from the fountain they had started out in the park, catching his Ashikabi by surprise. Mutsu. It would seem that the young sekirei was not without compassion for his strongest sekirei. Mutsu. What happened? Why are you coughing up blood? The earth sekirei could only grimace as he tried to count how many ribs of his were broken from the last attack. She used her Naruto. What? Her Ashikabi's around here? Why didn't I see him? I don't know. Wincing at the pain in his lower limbs, Mutsu gritted his teeth. In any case, we need to get out of here. It's far too dangerous if enemies of ours catch us in a state like this. Yes, you're right. We need to get you to MBI's hospital this instant. Then rushing towards the car, he opened the door for his precious sekirei. Come on. You're gonna die at this rate. It took all of Mutsu's patience to not kill his Ashikabi right then and there. Mikigami, I can't walk, in case you didn't realize that. Well, I can't carry you, can I? I'm too small. Waving his thin arms around, one would say that the kid had a point. Mutsu was both taller and heavier than him, and with his current injuries, he didn't really want to be dropped over and over like a rag doll on his way to the car. Telling himself repeatedly that Mikigami was just a kid and it was normal for him to forget things every now and then, Mutsu did his best to keep his voice even. Maybe you could give MBI Hospital a ring for them to pick me up. Oh. Silence ensued for a few seconds before Mikigami bopped his fist into his other free palm. I see. Yeah. Why didn't I think of that? Then it took him another 2 minutes to actually find his cell phone, another 3 minutes to find the MBI headquarter number from his phone, and when he finally got around to calling the MBI hospital, he had to find the address of where they were exactly before the MBI medical staff could come grab them, so that took quite a while once again. By the time the medical staff actually got here, Mutsu was already very close to unleashing his Naruto just to kill his Ashikabi. As he was lifted swiftly onto the stretcher, he had to constantly remind himself that it was wrong to kill your own Ashikabi, especially if it was someone you picked yourself, and how he didn't want to the person he wanted to kill just before he killed them. XX. After unleashing her Naruto for the first time in her life, Akitsu could only stare at the sheer amount of destruction that it caused. She had known she was strong before. After all, she was a single digit, but to think that the Naruto really could bring Sekirei's powers to a new height. This was just unbelievable. For so long, she had dreamt of being able to use her Naruto, wondering just how strong it would be, and now that she had seen it, it just brought the adrenaline surging through her veins. She felt so excited at the fact that she had just defeated number 5 with her Naruto. Hers. She would have been able to fight him to a stalemate with just her normal powers, but what she had just witnessed was something akin to overkill. Half the forest was covered in ice. Rarely would one ever expect to see Akitsu smiling like she was now. It was a smile that was filled with excitement, restless energy, and sheer gratitude at what her Ashikabi had done for her. Just a few hours ago, she was still a scrap number, ready to give herself to anyone who wanted her, regardless of reasons, and look at how she was now. Oh, the warmth that filled her entire body as she unleashed that Naruto was glorious. It brought her back to the special dimension, where her Ashikabi had shown his love for her, and now that love was flowing through her sekirei core. She relished that feeling, the nirvana that swept her off her feet even as she hugged her own arms around her torso, trying to physically keep that feeling within her, unwilling to let it escape her grasp. It was pure bliss. Thinking about all this instantly made her remember that she was still trying to search for her Ashikabi, and without a moment's hesitation, she leapt off into the distance once more. She knew that no. 5 was in no condition to carry out a pursuit of her, and she doubted there were any other sekirei that had dared to face her after witnessing the after effects of her Naruto, hence she turned her full focus into finding her Ashikabi. At this moment, all she wanted was to be held in his arms, and listen as he showered her with praises and amorous words that would make her blush to no end. The need to share this feeling with her Ashikabi only grew stronger by the second. What would she say when she first met him for the first time in this reality? The mere thought of meeting him face to face was enough to paint her face a dark scarlet shade. She had so many questions that she wanted to ask him, so many things she desired to know about him, and she didn't even know where to start. Perhaps asking him why she was able to use her Naruto when she hadn't been ed by her Ashikabi? Or maybe just where he got his special powers from? Or how he was able to find her so easily out of all the other sekirei? One couldn't blame Akitsu for placing so much emphasis on her being special because even if an Ashikabi had been on the active search for a sekirei, they really wouldn't place too much effort into finding someone they knew was a scrapped number. It really wasn't their first choice because regardless of how strong she was, she couldn't be winged. So how was it that her precious Ashikabi had searched her out like that, and at such an opportune time too? Shaking her head, the Ice Sekirei decided to focus on the trail she was currently on. Earlier on, she had been so overwhelmed with emotions that she failed to notice the connection that she now had with her Ashikabi, and once she realized its presence, all she had to do was follow her heart, quite literally. Soon, I will be by your side, Naruto-sama. XX. Little did Akitsu know, her blonde Ashikabi was currently in a bit of a pinch. Uzumaki-san, can you please explain why you just said something so lewd, crude, and vile? Just like before, it would seem that the patience of a certain purplet was running quite thin when it came to him and his big mouth. Though most of the time, he had no idea what was it that he said wrong, because the female species had so few little safe words for the males to use that usually, Naruto would step on the bombs with his easygoing and direct attitude, unknowingly stirring up the wrath of the oh-so-lovely ladies, turning them into terrifying devils that would stop at nothing to claw at you, be it with words or with nicely polished nails. Mia was a prime example. What was that, Uzumaki-san? There we go again, the crimson Hanya mask complete with sharp horns, metallic eyes and the disgusting smile on the leering mouth split from ear to ear. That's like the 5th variation already. Naruto had heard of people mumbling earlier in the day about how the North might not be a good place to live in, because the Hanya of the North claimed protection on that area. He was even wondering who that Hanya was. Reality is a cruel thing, you should know that by now, Naruto. After 2,000 years of experience, shouldn't you know that it's always the ones that look pretty and delicate that own the most devastating powers in contrast? The fact that Yuzum and that Kagari-san were chuckling in the background didn't really seem to help. He was current sitting in Saiza, a Japanese traditional way of sitting, normally reserved nowadays for greeting guests, apologizing, or in Naruto's case awaiting punishment. After separating from Akitsu, he had left the woman to her own devices, knowing that she would be able to escape without much trouble, and hence proceeded to make his way back to Isumo Inn, wanting to tell the others beforehand that he had brought back a new roommate. By the time he reached the inn, the final member, or so Mia said, of Isumo Inn was now available to meet him, and upon first glance, Naruto felt goosebumps running up his back. This non-human was the weirdest he had ever come across. Could he even call this dude a man? This guy should be an amoeba. He's less. What the hell? On the outside though, Naruto was prim and proper, as polite as one could expect out of a guy who had participated in his fair share of high-class social balls. He took special pride in the fact that Mia was once again staring at him with owlish eyes, though the way she stood with her posture slanted backwards and how her hand was covered over her mouth made it seem like she was trying to decipher how there could be such a change of character from the pervert this morning. That or she just thought I was trying to hit on this Kagari-san. Or both. Oh, who am I kidding? Knowing her, it must be both, the sadistic, vicious lady with the face of an angel. Voice effects of Butsu started floating around Naruto even as he muttered with a dark aura, eyeing Nia with something akin to obsession as he started making disturbing motions with his hands. That earned him a smack on the head with a ladle, plus the first variation of the Hanya mask. He was taken aback in all honesty, not thinking that she was able to create an illusion using her killing intent. The blonde had tried to poke the thing to see if it was corporeal, only to be smacked by the mask and witnessed its transformation to the second variation. In all honesty, it would be scary to anyone else, but for Naruto, after witnessing Guy and Lee's hugs even when they were both wrinkled old man built up something of an immunity against scary things. That would forever be the most disturbing image he had witnessed, an 80-year-old and a 60-year-old still wearing green spandex, still hugging each other while yelling out their names at the top of their voices. While not loud, it was still quite unsettling, and still claiming that they were at the prime of their youth. Yes, and pigs fly. Oh look, a third variation. It would appear that Mia was quite annoyed that he seemed to be ignoring her lecture about how one needed to conduct themselves properly in Isumo Inn, and evolved her Hanya mask to emphasize her current temper with the newly added member of their inn. At first, Yuzum and Kagari had been shocked that their new neighbor was completely unaffected by the Hanya masks that Mia was creating. It was quite uncanny to think someone was able to withstand not just one version of the mask, but another two in consecutive fashion. Though that line of thought was quickly forgotten as they both began doing their best to hold in their laughter, and failing quite hard even as Mia continued her lecture with her eyes closed, not realizing that Naruto was extremely bored and had taken to make silly faces at the Hanya mask while Mia went on and on. It took a while, but Yuzum couldn't take it anymore and was the first to break out laughing, effectively disturbing Mia's speech, earning her a glare in her way, which instantly reminded her that she herself was absolutely terrified of the Hanya and did not have the guts like this newcomer to test Mia's patience. And hence immediately clasped both hands on top of her mouth, so as to prevent the giggles from coming out, but it just wasn't to be. The moment Kagari joined in as well, both of them collapsed onto the ground, breathless with laughter, notifying Mia that something was very wrong. Yuzum being playful, she could understand, but Kagari too? Frowning, she had turned back to Naruto, only to find him sitting side by side with the Hanya mask that had somehow during the course of her lecture floated over to the blonde. Both Naruto and the mask now had on the exact same eerie smile on their faces, with Naruto pulling a face that made his eyes look wider, his nose flatter, and his cheeks puffier. In other words, Mia was now staring at Hanya mask, Naruto version. Literally. It was the other two members could take before they both collapsed to the floor, holding their stomachs as they wheezed and huffed, in an attempt to stop their mirth from growing any more, but to no avail. One just couldn't be serious when Naruto's prank side came out. Till this day, no one had been able to successfully ward off the charms of one Uzumaki Naruto. He was the best, the strongest, the most handsome. Yuzum started hammering her fist onto the tatami floor, whereas Kagari had his face from view, for fear that it would drive Mia even angrier than she was now. With each description of how awesome the blonde was, his face and body coordinated together to portray that exact image, or whatever he deemed that image to be, which was really quite amusing, but what made it perfect was the fact that the Hanya mask would also change to match his expression, making it look like a pair of brothers who were both trying to act cool and failing miserably. Uzumaki-sen, the raging aura surrounding the landlady grew by leaps and bounds, as though ready to erupt any moment, her soul ladle now replaced by two-sword style? Hearing the guffawing behind Mia, Naruto's sweat dropped as he realized that he had spoken out loud once again. Uzumaki-san. Her eyes were positively glowing with evil right now. Hi. He really didn't want to disagree with a woman when she had the look on, no matter how much fun it was to tease her while she was angry. Siza. Her smile was quite creepy, making you feel as if she wanted to chew chunks of flesh of you before she swallowed you piece by piece. Hi. Without a moment's hesitation, he entered the state which he had then stayed in until present time. Of course, Mia had then glared at her own mask, before evolving it into a fourth variation, and continued on with her lecture to Naruto about rules in Isumo Inn. The howling laughter from Yuzum and Kagari, well, mainly Yuzum, had died down somewhat, and they would both only chuckle at the pitiful expression Naruto had on his face as he was forced to listen to the endless lecture on conduct and behavior. Though at some point in the one-sided conversation, Naruto had interrupted and said that his new roommate might be arriving soon and it might be better if they had postponed this lecture to after she had arrived so that she could listen in to this amazing fountain of information that was Mia. The purplet was taken by surprise, asking what he meant by a new roommate, and is she at that? Naruto had then put on a very fake blush and covered his cheeks in very fake embarrassment, before squealing about how Mia was jealous that he had a new girl, and then proceeded to make bold claims to Mia that he would never give up on her, and would gladly invite her to join his harem as the main heroine before he was smacked by 3 ladles. The third one miraculously held by her. Naturally, his mumble of 3 swords style again brought endless giggling from the 2 spectators. Not even bothering to glare at those 2 behind her, Mia instead snarled as she made a 5th variation in an attempt to scare this perverted blonde into submission, but once again failing. How could this be? Everyone was afraid of the mask. Everyone. She would not allow any exceptions. If she had to beat it into their skull for them to realize it, then. Noticing a cruel smile beginning to form on the purplets, the alarms within the blonde's head started shrieking, and he did the first thing that came to mind. He made a leap towards Mia in an attempt to show her how much he loved her, only for her to gladly accept him with a smile oh so sweet while he was in midair, before stomping him into the ground and unleashing her ladle power on him. Such was the scene that Akitsu came upon even as she landed softly into the backyard of Isumo Inn, staring in astonishment at how her Ashikabi was screaming bloody murder at the hands of the slender landlady. Had it been anyone else, the ice sekirei would already have charged at them, ready to do anything to save her Ashikabi, but the Hanya mask that appeared was so scary that she had temporarily forgotten about her ability to fight, and stood rooted to the spot, looking like a helpless little girl. That had gotten Mia to stop, smiling in satisfaction that her mask still had the effect on some people, before scowling back in Naruto's direction, as though saying she will create a Hanya mask that will scare him one day. Era, and who might this be? Akitsu had temporarily lost her ability to talk, but soon recovered when she saw the sekirei in the star t-shirt and the other one in the white shirt give her looks of understanding and compassion, as though that was their reaction too when they first saw it. That's my new roommate. Say hi to everyone, Aki-chan. He was still mumbling with his face down, his entire body covered with footstep marks and more than just a bit bruised. Hi. Being the obedient sekirei that she was, Akitsu gave them a curt bow, and mumbled a quick greeting, which was repeated by Mia, Yuzum and Kagari. There was just one small problem. Uzumaki-san? HM? What's wrong? Naruto had finally pulled his face off the tatame and was struggling to remove his body from the Naruto-sized crater that Mia had beaten into the floor just now. In an instant, the poor blonde found himself surrounded by 10 Hanya masks, each scarier than the other. Mia-san? Confused as to his sudden predicament, as well as how Yuzum and Kagari were staring at him with sympathetic gazes, he couldn't help but feel a cold shiver run down his back. It was then that he saw Akitsu's current state of dress, or rather, her lack of it. It really wasn't her fault that she had forgotten to wear something less revealing. By the time she had escaped from MBI, her clothes were already in tatters. After the fight with Mutsu, the power from her Norito had again ripped them up some more, and she was just so caught up in her need to find her Ashikabi that the thought that she might be indecent never crossed her mind. Though in all honesty, it wasn't like she would remember anyway. She was just that forgetful. Naruto, though, seriously forgot about this. In the other dimension, they had both been naked, and hence the fact that Akitsu would need clothes never came to mind. Alright, so he could take some blame for it, but was there really a need for each mask to be holding a ladle in their mouths, plus the 9 Mia was holding? Wait, how come Mia had 3 heads and 6 arms? No way. It couldn't be. Ajura? 9 sword style? Kaguri couldn't help but shake his head as the blonde found himself on the receiving end of a very harsh punishment. He had no idea if this blonde newcomer was trying to rile up Mia or was just plain stupid. From his point of view, he couldn't see that nine-sword whatever he was yapping about, but he guessed it was just Mia forcing more killing intent on him, making him see illusions of her. Though he seemed more surprised than scared, so that might explain why Mia was really releasing her pent-up stress. Looks like this place is going to become very merry from now on. Yuzum giggled even as she watched the blonde rolling all over the room, trying to avoid the ladle strikes. Yeah. A small smile graced his before he turned back to the new roommate of Uzumaki. Why don't you come in and make yourself comfortable? Yuzum can give you some clothes too. His voice was caught in his throat abruptly even as his widened in recognition. Yuzum blinked at the sudden change in tone of Kaguri's voice, and followed his line of sight to the sekirei that had just walked into the living room. To say she was surprised would be a great understatement, what with her jaw crashing to the ground as she now saw the face of the new roommate clearly. Wasn't she the Yuzum-san? Kaguri-san, an eerie voice rang behind them even as they spun around in fear, staring straight into two Hanya masks that had them both retreating behind the sekirei at an alarming pace. It's very rude to point at people here in Isumo Inn, wouldn't you agree? How she could smile in such a sweet manner whilst insinuating that she would do you physical harm if you disagreed was just unthinkable. Why yes, of course, Mia. Kaguri gulped even as he tried to steady his heart rate. I was just surprised. Why yeah. And me too. Yuzum quickly piped up, wanting the mask to disappear as soon as possible. Really now? Chuckling in satisfaction after seeing both heads nod up and down multiple times in quick succession, the landlady went up to Akitsu herself. I apologize for them, they aren't usually like this. It's because of someone that they've become so excitable this evening. It's okay. We need to get you some clothes to put on. I'm sure Yuzum here has something that would fit you. Turning around to a still somewhat pale Yuzum, she spoke softly. Would you mind giving her a hand? I need to have some words with Uzumaki-san here. But of course. I would love to help. Come on, Naraki, your name was? Akitsu. Yash. Akitsu-chan. Let's go to my room. I've got a whole cupboard of cute clothes that you could, Yuzumi? The beginnings of a new Hanya mask could be seen forming. I am just joking, Nia. Come, Akitsu-chan. We need to run from the evil Hanya now or we'll never escape. Hi. Without any resistance, the sekirei let Yuzum drag her upstairs to her room, leaving Kaguri alone by himself with the mad couple, or so he deemed them. Searching through his brain for some sort of excuse he could use to escape, Kaguri hit the jackpot. I've just realized that I needed to go to the nightclub earlier tonight. I guess I'll just leave you guys to it, eh? Oh ho, if that's the case, then you really should be going. I assume we won't be expecting you back until tomorrow? That smile of hers was enough to chill his bones, eliciting an instant reply of hi from him. Well then, why don't you say goodbye to Uzumaki-san here? After all, this might be the last time you see him. Oh ho. The blonde simply sweat dropped. I am still here, you know. Kaguri barely managed a smile, if you could even call it that, before waving towards the blonde, as though saying goodbye to someone who was going into a death sentence. Sayonara. Uzumaki-kun, it was good to have known you, even if it was only for a short while. With that, Kaguri rushed back to his room, grabbed a change of clothes and ran out of the inn, leaving Mia with Naruto. Silence ensued for quite some time, before Naruto couldn't take it anymore. Can you not smile at me like that? It's really disturbing. Why no? Uzumaki-san, can you tell me please, taking a step closer to him with each word to put emphasis on the reason she was so angry, why is she naked? What? She wasn't naked. Her private parts were more than covered. She just showed 90% of her body, that's all. Oh really, looks like I need to repeat my lecture to you with more force so that it would stick in your thick skull that. And the world exploded right there. Lewd, lecherous acts are not permitted in Isumo Inn. XX. It would be a few hours later when Naruto left the Isumo Inn to find a pub somewhere for him to get drunk. He rubbed the bumps on his head as he cursed crazy female landladies with monstrous strengths and an uptight moral code. Just you wait, one day, I'll peel off all those morals of yours and ravage you so thoroughly that you would never even think bad of those so-called lewd, lecherous acts, mwaha, mwahahaha. Caught up in his evil musings, he didn't realize that everyone on the streets was now avoiding him like the plague. Greed tended to have that effect on civilians, and he relished in the fact that he could scare people just by sending out his possessive aura. Naruto was not amused. Sighing, he tried to remember if there were any bars on his way back from MBI. It had been a while since he had sake, and if being with the toads taught him one thing, it was how to drink sake. Though there really wasn't much point for him to drink it, because he could never get drunk, he still did it anyway because sake tasted nice. It was kind of like drinking soft drinks because you could. What kind of city is this? Why would all the bars and pubs be situated so far away from the north sector of the city? Surely there must be one somewhere? Were they seriously this scared of Mia? It's just a drinking place. She wouldn't come over and slice you all to bits for drinking, right? Then again, it was Mia they were talking about, and considering how bar fights tended to happen when people had a bit too much to drink, the din that it created could be enough reason for Mia to put an end to stuff like this. Okay, perfectly believable. Now, Sake, where art thou? As though answering his call, a sweet aroma floated into his nose, causing him to sniff a few times experimentally, before grinning widely, Sake. Here I come. To the other pedestrians on the road, all they saw was a blur that blew through them all as Naruto rushed to find the scent of the delicious liquid from Kami. Imagine his surprise when his sense of smell brought him to a construction site, and not like a bar that he had presumed at first. What the sniffing once more, Naruto frowned, but it is from here. Looking around, it took him a while before realizing that there was someone drinking at this place, though why someone would choose here of all places was quite the surprise for you. Slowly making his way underneath the steel frame of the building, the blonde squinted upwards to the topmost level, before he shouted, "Oh Nei-san!" The figure at the top started for a bit, before making a peering motion, in her hand, a small cup filled with the sake that Naruto was looking for, yes? Deadpanning at how she already seemed a bit tipsy, Naruto shrugged, before yelling once more, "Has anyone ever told you that it's dangerous to drink sake from there?" It took her a while to understand the message, before she started giggling in an uncontrollable fashion. "Oh my. Boya, you care for me? One-san is so touched. Come on up here so I can give you a hug." The blonde raised an eyebrow at the reply, understanding she was saying that just so he would leave her because he couldn't possibly climb that high, right? It took all of the woman's composure to not spit out the sake she had just swallowed right into the face of the cheeky blonde that was smirking at her even as he reached for her precious bottle of sake. "It's all good. Just let me have a drink and we'll call it even." How on earth did he get up here so quickly? He doesn't feel like a sekirei, but how? And why is he staring at me with such intensity? Naruto, on the other hand, was clearly admiring the beauty of the person sitting opposite of him. She was a very mature lady, wearing an extremely short purple Chinese dress, revealing her belly button and cleavage in an alluring manner. Her hair was beautiful, long and black, tied back with a lilac ribbon into a thick ponytail that flowed down to her waist level. Her most impressive feature, just like Musubi, was her well-endowed chest region. Upon noticing that, his smirk became a very foxy grin as his eyes narrowed into slits. The female, obviously getting uncomfortable with how he was staring, tried to play it off with her mature, older sister act. "Era Boya is so bold. Do you like what you see?" Normally, boys of his age, unfortunate misunderstanding that she would later come to regret, would blush and start mumbling nonsense. This blonde, however, merely announced in a proud tone, catching her completely off guard, 98-60-92. Speechless at his sudden proclamation, it took her a few seconds before she realized what he was talking about, and a warm blush instantly made its way to her cheeks, sending heat through her body in ways long forgotten. "Oh my, to think that I would be he's looking at me again, I just know. I cannot. But he's so ho. No. Kazahana. You will not fall for someone who's a third of your age. But oh, why does he keep looking at me like that? I must stay strong. I will not. Eep. He's coming closer. Aye. And this continued on until his forehead was almost touching hers, before he grinned playfully. "Oh Nei-san, your face is so red, it must be because you've been drinking so much. Why don't I relieve you of this bottle of sake?" Before she could even respond, the blonde had already disappeared from his spot, leaving her staring into the empty space, before her fists clenched and flung her torso over the steel construct, glaring at the blonde down on the road, who was now merrily drinking her sake. I can't believe I was just. Is he actually waving at me? How dare he? No one messes with my sake and gets away with it. Oh, that's it. I will be teaching him a lesson as to who you can and cannot steal sake from. Little did she know that Naruto was thinking the same thing, with a slight smirk on his even as he hummed to his favorite tune. Isn't she just so cute with that blush on her cheeks? Oh, look at her acting as if she wants to kill me. Ah, well, many have tried before you, my darling, but they have all bowed down before the great Uzumaki Naruto. So I say. Spinning around directly to face the incoming Kazahana, Naruto whispered in a soft, tender voice, "Let them come." Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video? Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow SyncroX for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.